The story begins with someone shouting that they hate this. At that moment, a blue aura seems to return to the body. The boy opens his eyes and suddenly rises from the bed, obviously out of breath. You can already imagine what happened. He's wondering if he hadn't died and why his body feels warm again. Besides that, his hand had no calluses, as if it were 10 years ago. That's when he looks around and realizes he's in the university dormitory. Immediately, he grabs the pillow, takes his phone, and sees a girl dancing. He unlocks the phone and notices there are no scars on his face. You already know what happened. Yep, the jerk reincarnated right before the apocalypse starts. He remembers what happened when he became the 10th war god of Dragon City. Two other war gods from the neutral field invited him to party. However, in the middle of the conversation, suddenly a high-level zombie broke in. In the moment he was fighting the creature, he was struck from behind, and the two Dan war gods helped the creature kill him. Then a girl approaches and asks Lindsay if he liked the gift he received from her family. On the ground, he asks why she is there. That's when he found out that demons had made a deal with the Leaf family. The girl named Yo Jing was the prettiest in school, and he was always happy to have her by his side. What he didn't know was that she was only with him under orders from the young master of the Leaf family. They used him as much as they could, and when he started getting too strong, they finished him off. This was after he helped the Leaf family become one of the 3 biggest in Dragon City. But now he's back in the present. With the combat power he had, he could easily have gotten rid of the Leaf family. However, he never imagined he'd be betrayed like that. But now he's back at the moment when she was still just his girlfriend. Then he receives a message on his phone. Yo Jing says she's going to give some lessons to kids, so she won't be able to celebrate his birthday with him. However, poor Lindsay already knows that at this time, the only lesson she was giving was through the touch of the Lee family on that date. He received a video gift that was unforgettable, man. It seems our boy was a major cuckold. He says it's fine, but that first he wants to meet her in the shed behind the school because he misses her. She says she'll go because it's his birthday, but it has to be quick. He knows that the guy she's involved with, called Lee Hao, seems to want to celebrate. But on that day in the past, he had planned a lot of things to celebrate with Yo Jing. However, what he got was a video that humiliated him. But now the rascal is reborn and won't let that tragedy happen again. Outside, everyone was wondering why the sky was red. Obviously, no one suspected the apocalypse was coming, but Lindsay knows that at 7 in the evening is when it would all begin. And the people there don't know that very few of them would survive. He then heads to the school's shed. He angrily opens the door. At the back of the room is Yo Jing sitting on a chair. She says he has to be quick because she has to teach the kids, but he already pulled the blade from up his sleeve and says not to hurry as he's going to deliver a little gift now. Slowly, he starts getting closer, and she tells him to spit it out because otherwise she's leaving, that she has better things to do, but suddenly he grabs her by the throat. Now, desperate, she calls him a crazy psychopath and tells him to let her go. But he says that on the 16th of March, she spent $53,000 at a modern hotel in Modu. Right after, on the 29th, she spent another 109,000 yuan. Confused, Yo Jing keeps asking what he's talking about. He continues talking about dates and amounts she's been spending. That's where she starts realizing that these hotel names all seem familiar. He then says that on the 13th of April, she spent 409,000 at the Magic Bar. That's when she realizes these were all records of the dates she met with Lee Hao. At that moment, she asks him to wait a moment, that she's going to explain everything. He responds that he's very eager for that explanation. He grabs her phone and unlocks it. There's a message from Lee Hao saying she's excited to meet him and telling her that the fool believed she was going to teach the children. Obviously, that's all Lindsay needed to see. He then suddenly releases her, puts her on the ground, and plays a video. Before the video starts, he says Lindsay is the foolish boyfriend and congratulates him. A second later, the video says exactly the same words, wishing him a happy birthday in the video. She asked why he believed that a beauty from the school like her would fall in love with a loser orphan like him. Terrified, Yo Jing starts wanting to know how he already knew the whole message. Before hearing it, Lindsay, reading the message, she says that if it weren't for Lee, how she never would have gotten involved with trash like him. The poor thing is going crazy. She didn't send that video to anyone, so how does he already know? She then says in the video that if it weren't for him, she never would have gotten involved with Lee Hao. Then she thanks the loser. That's when she realizes everything had been revealed. Lindsay just keeps staring. If the next question is whether she isn't curious about how he knows all of this, she stands still for a second and pushes his arm, telling him to go to hell. However, Lindsay says that's exactly where she belongs. And man, I thought he was going to forgive her, but the boy doesn't go easy at all. The girl turns into a bowling ball and falls to the ground like a piece of trash. With that, our guy lets out a sigh. He falls to the ground, kneeling emotional, because it took him 10 years to achieve this. Starts cracking up, saying he was played for 10 years, but he finally got his payback. She totally paid for what she did to him, but obviously that wasn't nearly enough. Now, it was time to take out that jerk, Lee Hao, who's hiding out with the Lee family. And just like that, the classic OP system shows up for the apocalypse. He glances at his phone and sees it's 6:50. It was all supposed to go down at 7, so why was the system already here? The system just says it's there to give him a better gaming experience. Some digital circles start appearing around him, and then the system tells him to claim his first ability, and not just any ability, but a legit super hack. What he gets is the absolute item drop. This makes it so any creature he takes down has a 100% chance of dropping an item. Considering everyone else only has a 1% chance, this was totally busted. While others would have to grind hundreds of zombies for every single one he dropped, he'd get stronger. It was so good that he even asks the system if this is for real. The status window pops up and yep, it clearly shows his super hack is active. In that moment, he's already getting hyped about how insane this is. The dude who subbed. This must think I'm a wizard to read this stuff upside down, you troll. But what really matters is that our boy, Lindsay, is amped to absolutely wreck the Lee family. The only problem is he's just a solo orphan while those guys have a massive family. Not only do they have tons of fighters, but also some secret techniques. Not to mention, he's always been dying to know exactly why the Lee family had it out for him. The original plan was to slowly get stronger on the down low and only then go after that family. But now, with these hacks, he won't have to wait nearly as long. With that, he dips out of the shed and our boy is not forgiving his wife. Oh, heck no. The kid got his revenge in like 2 chapters. Outside, everyone's freaking out over the pretty sunset, talking about how they need to make a heart for a cute picture. Our boy just scoffs, thinking they have zero clue that soon enough, they'll be eating each other, and not in a fun way. But this sly dude heads straight for the Love Hotel. He gets there, asks for a room for an hour, 3 bottles of water, and 5 buns. The clerk says "Ite" and tells him the price is $40. Our boy then says to send up the talented and hardworking member number 3. Once he's in the room, he knows there are 5 minutes left before everything kicks off. He remembers that in his past life, this number 3 became a zombie boss. Luckily, he managed to take her down, and that's how he started to evolve. Obviously, this is the best move, so he's going to run it back, especially with his new system talent. Someone at the door says number 3 is here for her appointment. She walks in with a whole vibe saying he's handsome, so this is going to be worth it. But she stops for a second looking startled. She gets closer to our boy and asks why he's wearing so many layers. She's not a tourist, but she's ready to explore the mountains and asks what he's waiting for. But our Sigma male just tells her to take a shower first. As soon as she leaves, he notices she has that nasty, rotten zombie smell. Before the apocalypse even started, you could tell who was going to turn just by that smell. The girl heads for the door. From inside, she's telling him to stop playing games that she knows he wants some. Water fun. But our boy keeps dragging his feet, so she finally turns off the shower. And right then, her skin starts turning green, and she's already making those classic zombie groans. Our boy swings the door open and sees her mid-transformation. She reacts instantly and spins towards him, rushing to get the jump on him. But with 10 years of experience, he just lands one clean strike to the neck. The poor girl's head just thuds against the floor. The system even pops up a window confirming she's done for. He lets out a sigh, and here comes the system. All right, my dude. With that, he finally gets the Welcome to the Apocalypse game message. Once it's activated, there's no going back, and he has to find a way to evolve. Zombies have insane hearing, but their vision is trash. 80% of the unlucky ones turned into zombies right away. To help him out, the system drops some more tips. Taking out creatures would help him level up, which would let him get new abilities stats and talents. Besides that, every creature he iced had a small chance of dropping an item of various ranks. Also, all of humanity's technology and weapons were about to become completely useless, so it was better not to even try using them. Not to mention, it would be impossible to communicate with any kind of man-made device. If you get bit, you turn into a zombie. On top of that, it was a really bad idea to go out at night, since the zombies were way stronger. The system says it's given enough pointers and that they probably won't talk again for about 7 days. The last tip the system gives is that for now, the zombies are all super weak, so he should totally use this chance to grind a ton of levels. Lastly, the assistant wishes him good luck and tells him to enjoy the game. A window then pops up for him to pick a username. Our boy Lindsay decides to go with the name G. It's probably got something to do with revenge from what he said earlier. With that, he gets a congrats for taking out a zombie and receives 1 experience point and 1 gold coin. Dude, wasn't she supposed to be the zone boss? On top of that, he was the first player to kill a zombie and snag the first blood achievement. In his past life, he never got any of these global achievements, but in this one, he's already scored the first. The system blasted a server-wide message that G was the first person in the world to kill a zombie and earn that achievement. A blonde girl named Ga Yao is shook, like she hasn't even finished reading the message and people are already getting kills, and another guy named Gigi says it's wild that someone's actually faster than him. In this system, you can level up strength, mind, physique, and agility. He's totally blown away by the base stats and figures it's gotta be from that achievement he unlocked. On top of that, the prestige stat is basically for getting sweet discounts and buying cool stuff later on, and the first talent perk makes his first hit after midnight deal double damage. After geeking out over all the system deets, he decides to check the loot from that first zombie. He scored a meditation necklace that buffs his mind by 1% and boosts recovery by 10%. His eyes totally light up. Seeing that the 100% drop rate is totally legit, it seems like the hack is running on the down low separate from the system, since it warns him to be careful so the real system doesn't catch on. But seeing the necklace, he knows that for now, he's got to get as jacked as possible, and the best place to start clearing house is this building. He starts walking down the hall when something totally catches his attention. There's a huge racket coming from one of the rooms. He creeps closer, slowly turns the handle, and inside, he finds some dude who's already turned. Obviously, this is a gym bro zombie, so it's a little beefier. But to him, it's still a total pushover. He dodges the first swing ducks under the second, and on the third, he goes straight for the throat to finish it. But even after getting tagged, the creature still tries to charge him, and the dude grabs for his face, but he just dodges with a slick spin. And with that, the second zombie is toast. Still, our boy is kind of bummed he couldn't one-shot it. Like clockwork, the 100% drop kicks in, and there's another loot box. Inside is a card that's basically a voucher for a cooked steak, and when he activates it, the food just pops up in front of him. Obviously, it wasn't super rare or anything, but hey, having food is never a bad thing. He stashes it in his inventory, then walks over to a suitcase on the floor and pulls out a photo of the guy with his daughter. Seeing that the dude had an axe, you could tell he was probably a mechanic. He checks room 208 and then 207. He finds Zip and heads to the door of room 206 and just kicks it in. He yells that it's time to clean house, but he's totally thrown off by what he sees. The couple was so into it that even as zombies, they're still getting busy. Our boy Yuen shuts the door, saying he forgot what kind of activities went down here. But then he opens it again and says it's insane they're doing asterisk, that asterisk, and the zombies. The angry zombie dude lunges right at him. He dodges all like, whoa, I wasn't trying to peep. The big guy keeps coming at him. He says, you're way too cocky for someone so weak, and clocks him right in the head, landing a solid hit to the eye. The other one tries to sneak up from behind, but our boy's got moves and takes her out without even looking. 2 more experience points and 2 more gold coins, and best of all, 2 more loot boxes. Now the dude realizes this thing is 100% for real. In his past life, 100 zombies barely got you a bottle of water, but in this one, nothing. Beats having luck on your side. He gets 2 cards that unlock a skill, letting him detect any movement within 10 meters. Since he's in this totally wrecked place, he uses it, right? Away. Just then, some guy stomps up to the second floor, yelling that he's making way too much noise. He tells him to get on his knees or he'll get wrecked, but Yuen dodges it like it's nothing. And if you think he's gonna let that slide, you're dead wrong. The chubby dude spins around yelling at him to stop dodging and start begging. Our boy's just like, it would have been better if you'd turned into a zombie, because at least then you'd give me some experience. It's a shame, but he had to end it now. This guy is savage. He totally redecorates the hallway. What a psycho, he says. That in the apocalypse, you can't leave any loose ends, and the only reason this guy bit the dust was because he was so weak. He starts going from room to room, knocking on doors, asking to be let in. Obviously, no one's opening up, so he tries another and is all like, delivery's here, but none of that is working. As he gets near one door, he hears this gross sound, and he gets hyped, thinking there's a zombie in there. He shoulder checks the door open and finds a huge dude who's already transformed inside. He tries to land a punch, but this one is fast and actually manages to dodge. The zombie swipes at him, but he ducks, taking advantage of the low stance to pull off a sick capoeira move. With the zombie's arms up, he slices its throat, and with that, another one bites the dust. As always, he gets another item. This time, he scored a bottle of liquor. With that, he kept rummaging through the rooms. Eventually, he found one to crash in. Since going out at night is a seriously bad idea, he takes off his jacket, and who would have thought our boy is seriously ripped? The system pings him that he needs 6 more experience points to hit level 3. The problem was, when he looked at his phone, he saw it was almost 8. The clock and the zombies were about to evolve, meaning he'd miss his chance to level up. Knowing how sketchy it would be to survive the night without that, he bolts outside looking for 6 more zombies. In the shed, he spotted a message from girl number 3 that could solve his problems. If there's a number 3 and he's already taken out another one, that means there's one more out there. Since zombies had crazy good hearing, there was a simple way to find them. Just bang on stuff until they came to him. He then hears a sound in a room at the back. He goes in, and the room looks empty. But then from one of the vents, he starts hearing a noise, and he's like, dang, they hid fast. On the stairs, 2 zombies are trying to shamble their way up, but they have terrible control over their bodies and end up just falling off. With that one plows right into the other, like a couple of idiots. Our boy almost feels bad for their effort, but for him, something else was way more important. He zips down there and finishes off the girl. Just then, another one pops up from behind, but he just spins and takes it down easy peasy. 2 more XP, but now his knife is getting seriously dull. But wait, check out that golden glow dropping him some loot. He totally scores a sick horizontal cutting sword from the Tang Dynasty and get this 2 super tasty looking buns to go with it. It gives him 1 more strength point and even shreds 10% of the target's defense. He knows these starter weapons will be trash later, but for right now, this thing is a total game changer. He stashes more water in his inventory. 10 minutes to go before everything gets seriously insane. With no other choice, he had to risk it on the streets. The second he opened the door, he spotted some poor dude who was about to become zombie chow. The zombies noticed him right away and started charging the hotel, but at level 1, they were still total idiots and just slammed into the door. The others came from behind and just piled up, tripping over each other like a bunch of clowns. In his past life, he spent the whole first day hiding and freaking out. He only fought the level 2 zombies, which were way smarter, but this time, he's got the perfect opportunity. In like 1 second, he whips out his new katana and just demolishes the entire group. For the early game, a weapon this good is totally OP. With those zombies out of the picture, he advanced to level 3 and got another attribute point. Then he heard another zombie groan. A new one shambled closer, and he could tell this one seemed a little sharper. Or maybe not, because she walked straight into his sword. But hey, it was totally worth it, because she dropped a skill book. Just then, his alarm went off at 8 p.m. Something was here. In that same instant, his spidey senses went off, and he immediately jumped back. A huge explosion rocked the hotel entrance. It was another level 1 zombie, but this one was juiced up by the night. The system pinged him, basically saying to play smarter, because now everything was way more dangerous. He knows this thing will just keep powering up for the first minute, and with that inside info, he has to take it down before it follows him inside. He goes all in with a massive strike, but even with his buffed up sword, it gets lodged. He grabs it with both hands to try and force it through, but dude, the zombie flexes and just shoves it out. Our boy has to bail, like right now. And the worst part, now all he's got is his tiny axe. He's not dumb enough to get close, so he just yeets it like a boomerang. Man, it sinks right into the monster while it's still distracted. He rushes in to grab his katana. He yanks it free and starts slashing away. The creature's all sliced up, but somehow still standing. It just glares at him and starts charging. Right at him again. Side note, let's have a moment of silence for the artist who got the boot by Chapter 10, because the art style totally changed. Anyway, back to the action. Our boy dodges back and swings again, connecting right with its neck. Finally, the freaking thing goes down. Hey, at least these new zombies look cooler than the old ones. Our boy starts grabbing all the loot especially, since you gotta stay hidden from everyone else. After 8 p.m., zombies get like a 50% power boost. He starts stacking the bodies at the entrance, worried that more of them might show up, especially since he made a ton of noise, so there's a pretty good chance he's got company coming. He sets up this sentry thing that'll flash red the second a monster gets close. With that active, he can finally chill for a sec and decides to take a bath. It's time to open his 4 loot boxes. He got a night ring, a bottle of mineral water, and 2 eyes of approval. He can't get used to this fancy lifestyle, especially thinking about how much he starved in his past life. That night ring is especially clutch. It boosts his agility by 1 and cuts his presence by 30%. Now, it was finally time to check out the skill he got from that book. The system pops up a congrats message telling him that in this world, anyone can learn unlimited skills. The catch: it's insanely hard to actually get your hands on one of these books. Usually, between levels 10 and 80, most people only get like 3 skills. And the worst part is, a lot of those skills don't even match their build. Back in his old life, this one dude they called the God of Skills had 25 after 10 years of grinding in the apocalypse. By the end, our guy had managed to get 10 skills and was stronger than 99% of the population. But the most important thing isn't the number, it's how good the skill you actually get is. And what Lindsay got was awesome, the boomerang slash skill. Basically, he can throw his weapon and it deals 120% damage. He's totally stoked, because the best skills are always the DPS ones. Even though it has a super long cooldown for now, the higher his mind stat gets, the shorter it'll be. The system asks if he wants to learn the skill. Yeah, obviously he smashes that accept button, and he decides to try out the new skill. But the second he gets up, his stomach rumbles. Guess he should probably eat something first. Luckily, his inventory is stacked with food, so he grabs a bite, thinking this stuff tastes like it came from a 5-star restaurant. And look at him, all organized. He even cleaned the table. Staring out at the moon, he knows that this time around, he's got to do things way differently, or he's just going to mess it all up again. He pulls up the system and grabs a pen. On a piece of paper, he writes down warrior and mage. The main difference between the classes is where your points go when you level up. Different stats. Like for a mage, every time they level up, they get 2 points in mind. On top of that, there are secret classes like Ghost, which only like 1 in 100 people get. In his past life, he somehow managed to unlock it without even really knowing what he was doing, so it probably won't be that tough this time. And in this world, you don't even unlock the class system until you hit level 10, and he's going for that Ghost class. It's all about being an assassin, maxing out strength and agility. He starts jotting down every class he can remember from the OGs who became war gods. Staring at the stats, he's like, what's the move here? He dumps 3 more points into strength and 2 into agility, then starts racking his brain for every single time he ran into a paladin knight. He also remembers this one, insane diamond item. So yeah, he pulls an all-nighter trying to remember every treasure and every crazy experience that could give him an edge. Then boom, scene changed to a mansion. Some dude S just yeets a vase at the wall, and this guy in blue gear is totally freaking out, yelling about how he can't chill when the whole planet is a mess because of Yo Jing. Her being late messed up the material drop, and now he can't take out that Dan Lindsay dude. Not to mention, he thinks this whole Dan apocalypse thing is total BS. The butler's like, "Sir, you gotta keep it down, you're gonna attract zombies." But Leo is just like, wouldn't it be better to just, send that loser, Lindsay, to go see his dad already? The butler totally gets it. The kid's trying to take out the competition for becoming the new head of the family. The thing is, now that the apocalypse has kicked off, he's got to get that attitude in check, or he's gonna have a bad time. Then Leha asks if his dad's Merc squad is on their way, because once they hit Emodu City, they can link up with those jerks later. He's dead set on finding that Yo Jing, even if he has to drag her body back, just to make Dan Lindsay miserable. The butler's like, yeah, that's totally doable since the Mercs were trained to follow his every command. Just thinking about it gets him all hyped up. Meanwhile, our MC is coughing. He's all geared up and just leaps out of the hotel. Outside, just as he thought, it's swarming with zombies, but in the daylight, they're way weaker. He whips out his katana and unleashes Boomerang Slash. He just starts slicing through mobs in the city until bam, he hits level 4. For a bunch of level 1 zombies, it was like stupidly easy for him. Plus that skill and his sword, a perfect combo. The only drag is the super long cooldown, which is seriously slowing him down. So he decides it's time for the best part, opening all the loot boxes he scored. In one of them, there's an attribute item. Actually, get this, the drop was a bronze item for upgrading gear. Lindsay is stoked, like, heck yeah, this is useful. He instantly uses it on his sword, and boom, it's now a tank sword +1. So now, instead of ignoring 10% of defense, it ignores a whole 15%. The points he just got, straight into strength. Then, in another box, the system is like, congrats, you got a hidden mask. It lets him hide his level and basic info for 30 minutes, and he can use it twice a day. Since he's trying to stay low-key, this thing is clutch. He equips it, and the system gives him another congrats. Dude, this guy is so chill. He just wiped out a bunch of zombies and is now just laying on the ground. He knew he had to rest up to hit level 5 before dark so he could take on a certain spot. And yeah, Avi, we're talking about that legendary dungeon, right? The author's like, it's not going to have everything, we're sticking to the script, bro. So besides the regular dungeons, there are these unique ones you can only clear once, and they have way better loot. But for now, it was time to dip to LY Village. He also got a precise watch drop and slapped that on right away. After that, he kept moving and taking out a few more zombies on his way through the village, which seemed totally dead. He spots this door with a huge lockman, but his blade is no joke. He just gives it one good slice. He heads inside and starts checking out the rooms. Then, behind a door, he sees this gnarly red puddle. He slowly opens it, and just then, a hand lunges for him with his trusty sword. And now being level 5, he lops it off easy peasy. But then something else catches his eye, and when he glances over, another hand is busting through a door. Dude, the zombie just goes ballistic and smashes through, but our guy just calmly swats them away one by one. He keeps going through the house, and in the back he spots a girl in a family pic. If I'm remembering right, that's got to be the Yo Jing they were talking about earlier. He walks down the hall muttering about how in this world, you can't afford to feel sorry for anyone. He opens the system to pull out some food, and like always, the dude lays out a whole feast. Seriously, I've never seen a main character in an apocalypse be this chill. He checks his phone and sees that on the way to the dungeon, he should probably hit level 5. He's over-resting, so he gets up. He hears something and creeps toward the door. He knew he wasn't tripping because he definitely heard footsteps. Meanwhile, outside, there's Gabby, the dude with the Band-Aid on his nose, and G, the girl with glasses. They can smell the amazing food from inside and are like, how is that even possible? All while our boy is just eavesdropping, getting ready to bounce. G says it's messed up to just steal from people. Gabby's like, we're not going to steal, we'll just ask. And if he says no, then we'll rough him up. Right. That makes perfect sense. But our guy is just watching G from the shadows, taking it all in. And this dude is so not known for letting people just walk away. Another one, Gia calls our MC a thief because he broke into their house. Cha is ticked off because when her parents and brother turned into zombies, she locked the place down and bolted. Now she's back and starving, but this guy apparently took everything. All hyped up, she's like, fine, I guess we'll just have to take something from him, and then blood splatters on her face. Man, our boy does not mess around and just clocks the idiot from behind. What a move, that dude. Got a one-way ticket to the great beyond. This kid has zero chill. Lindsay's like he was trying to conserve energy, but he couldn't have them drawing a whole zombie horde over here. Dude, he just yeets the katana. Sends her flying and takes out the girl too, dude. Then he offs another one. Man, even I'm getting creeped out by this MC. He's not leaving any survivors. And here I was introducing everyone like they'd actually stick around. For more than 2 chapters, our boy just looks at Jukaji and says anyone who ditched their own sister is a waste of space. He had to take them out since they were going to try and rob him anyway. This dude is seriously unhinged for real. He just walks off saying the government should give him a medal for cleaning up the trash. And just like that, the whole house was wiped. Outside, the street was packed with zombies as usual. A few were crawling up a building. From a window, some lady is all like, I see a superhero. Then someone else shows up and tells her to get down before the zombies swarm them. But you can bet your life that outside a total was just tearing through everything. The only problem, you couldn't see his name or title when he leveled up. The girl's like, who cares? They should just yell and get that guy to save them. Listen, lady, I don't know you, but if I could give you some advice, do not call this dude. He's more dangerous than anything out there. But her husband says if he's hiding his info, something's definitely sketchy. All of a sudden, our boy gets some hearts and a little dance emoji on his phone. From the top floor, this girl pops up calling him Big Brother, clearly trying to trade help for a rescue. But our guy totally ghosts her and just keeps walking. To him, the loot on the ground was way more important. The girl starts flipping out, yelling that she has over 30,000 followers, so he better not ignore her. This psycho says she'll make him regret it and grabs a vase. Girl, no, you have no idea who you're messing with. But well, there she goes, about to get herself deleted. Of course, our boy senses something's up. He dodges and the vase shatters on the ground. She instantly switches up, acting all sweet, saying she's just upstairs and super scared of the zombies, so he needs to save her. She even offers to hold his hand. Honey, I don't think he's into that. Then he pulls a piece of meat soaked in zombie virus from his inventory and chucks it at her. That stuff is basically a magnet for any creature within 100 meters. The girl is not having it and starts cussing him out like, did you not hear me? I said save me, until all of a sudden she hears something behind her. It's a whole horde of zombies drawn in by the meat. And just like that, another one bites the dust thanks to our boy. This chick was literally live on TikTok in the middle of the apocalypse. At this rate, we're going to need a new main character just to take this one down. A mob of zombies then starts yeeting themselves off the building right at him. The creatures just splat on the ground all mangled, but he just keeps walking, totally chill. He makes his way to the Mew gym. That was the spot he was looking for, and in 2 hours when it gets dark, it'll be the perfect time to go in. He knew that on top of everything, there was a wild silver rank chest inside. The system popped up a warning saying that sign means there's some kind of special system event going on. Wild chests are basically treasures that can spawn anywhere, and anybody can open them. A boss chest, though, has way rarer loot, but it's also way harder to get. The second he stepped into the gym, he got his first mission: take down 100 zombies solo. The catch: the place was filled with only level 2 zombies, and killing 100 of those was not going to be easy. His original plan was to just sneak around and grab the chests, but now that he has this mission, he's got to do it. But being the lazy dude he is, he asks the system what would happen if he just ignored the objective. The system says if he bails on the mission, he'll get 100 gold coins as a consolation prize, but obviously the reward for actually doing it would be way better. So he heads to a room and just busts the lock. Inside, he finds the basketball zombie. It was time to start his 100 kill count. As usual, he steps in and goes for a face stab, but yo, this thing totally tanked it. He had to hit it with another one right in the mouth. At least the creep finally dropped the basketball. Our boy thinks it's kind of funny that this dude must have turned while he was playing ball and just kept holding it. And like always, the 100% drop box appeared. He gives the body a little nudge and goes to grab a super flashbang. I mean, it's just a flashbang, but you know, super. Not a huge mystery. But he gets hyped because for breaking into other people's spots, it's the perfect tool. He also snagged the key to the main gym area. That was clutch because he wouldn't have to bust down the door and could slip in quiet-like without alerting everyone. With that, he just strolls on in. He scopes out the area, which is crawling with zombies. In the dark, the creatures were all slow and basically blind. Williams makes a break for the ping pong table and dives underneath. From there, he starts counting and realizes there are 17 zombies in just that one room. It was a super risky play, but it also meant 17 item boxes if he could stay quiet. No other zombies would wander in. He only needed 4 more to hit level 5, and then things would get way easier. One was shuffling right past him, and he decides that's going to be number 1. He whips it right in the back of the neck. The first one drops, and the sound alerts all the others. They instantly whip around towards Lindsay. Now the whole horde is charging at him, but this little rascal is just chilling under the ping pong table. As they get closer, he lashes out and takes out 3 of them at the legs. Then our boy leaps out from under the ping pong table with this slick move. Not sure why he had to be so extra, but he lands right behind them. He dashes forward and finishes another one. And with that, he's already taken out 4 zombies, getting him closer to okay. So he hit level 5. He needed a solid 100 experience points to level up. Knowing he was in a super cramped spot, he knew he'd need more agility. He dropped the point in and vaulted onto the table. And just like that, all the zombies started heading his way. But since they're totally brain dead, they just got stuck at the edge, making it super easy for him to clock them in the face. Meanwhile, some dude was spying on him from behind a door, a guy in a red shirt and a bandana. The narrator's basically saying, this guy is bad news and I'm with him. If I could give you a tip, it'd be to bounce from here like ASAP. The real danger just showed up, but this psycho was actually hyped, thinking that a person who could wreck that many zombies must be loaded with good stuff. His whole plan was to wait for our boy to get taken out so he could jack everything. But yeah, that wasn't happening. The number of zombies was dropping, and the blonde dude realized he'd have to, help our guy die. He was going to do him the huge favor of bringing more zombies to help send him on his way. Right then, another one busted into the room. Lindsay was thinking he'd made way too much noise, and now something was pounding on the door where the blonde guy was hiding. Seeing the door was getting messed up, he knew it wasn't going to hold for much longer. He needed to waste the zombies in front of him and get out of there fast. But just then, 3 of them lunged at him. Our parkour king busted out another sick move and just spun out of the way. The problem was more and more zombies kept rolling in. Man, he literally made a shish kebab out of 3 of them. He ducked under the table to catch his breath and saw he'd gotten a one-time use potion that would bring back 20% of his energy and an extra 5% per minute for 5 minutes. For him, being totally gassed, it was perfect. As soon as he was up, he yeeted his sword, finishing off another one. This time, he spotted a strange black box and quickly ran to snatch it. Inside, there was a bracelet that let him use a spike skill once a day. He knew skill gear was crazy rare and slapped it on immediately. At that exact moment, the door finally caved in, and a horde of zombies started pouring in. But for him, having just scored that item, it was perfect timing. A huge mob of zombies was coming right for him. He jumped back on the table and waited for them to get closer. Then he vaulted right over all of them and activated the bracelet. Out of the ground, a ton of giant spikes just shot up, and he was like, now the real party starts. A bunch of spikes kept blasting from the ground, shredding the zombies. That ability was as OP as a level 20 mage's spell. More zombies swarmed from behind, but the spikes took them out, no problem. It looked like that thing was going to keep on wrecking stuff without him lifting a finger. He got a ton of items and experience, and then the ability went on cooldown. The system said it'd take 24 hours to use it again, but he could also use his mental energy to power it up. And like always, it was his favorite time of daytime to loot all the boxes. He found some kind of Fortnite bazooka that let him launch any object 30 meters away, and also some boots that boosted his movement speed by 20% for 10 seconds. The stats he had were already way higher than someone who'd already unlocked a class. This meant that at this rate, he had at least double the stat points of most people. Another wave of zombies started coming at him. He loaded a gross piece of meat soaked in zombie virus into the bazooka, fired it, and it got every single creature's attention. They all shambled over to the corner of the room, and he hit the boot's speed boost, easily ditching those losers. A while later, he was crashed on the stairs, totally wiped. There was only 1 hour left until 8 p.m. And he knew how sketchy this place was about to get. First, this exhausted psycho needed to find a spot to crash. He kept walking down the halls using the master key he had, scored, but before opening the door, he thought it was weird that it was locked from the inside. He knew this was the gym's infirmary, and considering when it closed, it had no reason to be locked. He opened it hoping he wouldn't find another psycho trying to off him. He slowly slipped into the room, and immediately a blade was at his throat with someone asking how he got the key to this place. But our boy just snatched the guy's arm and crushed his wrist. Just like that, the blonde dude dropped the knife, and our guy said he'd picked a fight with the wrong person. He took a step back and twisted the guy's arm back. I thought he was going to end him right there, but instead, he just shoved a cloth in his mouth. He opened his inventory, pulled out a curtain, covered the window, and told them to hit the lights. Out of nowhere, a nurse popped up saying that turning on the lights would be a total zombie magnet. He wasn't giving her a choice, and another person in the back of the room ended up flicking them on. Honestly, my money is on the girl in the leggings being the only one to survive this. The blonde guy recognized our boy as the one who'd been mowing down zombies, and that he'd wanted to jack his loot. And Lindsay told him to drop the smug look when he was so pathetic. Come a little closer, buddy. I think your game's about to be over. Our boy said he's not a fan of people who hold grudges, and then just swiped the guy's neck. People in the infirmary were totally freaking out, and somehow the girl had lost her leggings. Then out of nowhere, our boy flicked a hidden knife out of the guy's sleeve, saying that this dude had been ready to backstab him and told them not to worry, he's one of the good guys. Of course, everyone was quick to agree, like, oh yeah, for sure, you're a great person. But for real, they were all scared out of their minds. Lindsay said he's a reasonable guy, and that if they didn't pull any funny business, he wouldn't have to hurt anyone. Then someone stepped forward. Is our boy finally about to get a crew, or is there gonna be another takedown and another victim? The girl pulled her leggings back on, came forward, and said everyone saw that the guy totally had it coming. She asked the others, and they all agreed, saying, yeah, of course he did. He totally deserved it. Lindsay just smirked, saying it was awesome to know everyone was on his side. He realized he was way more wiped than he was this morning, so channeling his inner lazy king, he told everyone to clean the place up because he needed to crash. Obviously, nobody was going to argue with the guy. They wrapped up the blonde dude and basically planted him. Our boy was just checking out the Queen of Leggings, thinking he'd totally seen her somewhere. She was still a level 0 noob, and her name was Jang Yaku. When he saw the name, it totally clicked. In his past life, when he was at rock bottom, she had already scored a legendary class known as the God Doctor. All messed up, he had told her he'd do literally anything if she could fix his wounds, but she hit him with the news that the scar on his face was soul deep and couldn't be healed. Every time he got wrecked, he'd find her and beg for a patch-up. Her biggest weakness was that even though her class was OP, it pretty much made her a walking heal bot for other people. He remembers that in the future she turned into a completely different person than she was now. Maybe it was destiny that they crossed paths again. All of a sudden, they heard a noise coming from right outside the door. Everyone grabbed their weapons, waiting to see what would pop out, while Lindsay was just calmly checking his watch. Then he whipped out 3 cards and dropped a whole feast on the table. Dude, he just dug in. Of course, everyone in that room had been starving for a day and was practically drooling. Yexu gulped, asking where he got all that food and if they could maybe have a little. Our boy just smiled, saying it looked like she walked right into his trap. He said that to get a piece of this, she'd have to do him a solid. Everyone was down, but the leggings queen just said to tell her what he wanted. While she was already tripping, he asked for exactly what you're thinking. He showed her a piece of paper and said he wanted every single medicine on that list. Kinda hyped, she asks if that's really all he wants. He's like, yep, unless you're trying to offer something extra. She was like, heck no, and said she was gonna go get everything right now. The 2 other guys were mechanics, and he quickly gave them a list of stuff he wanted them to build by 6 a.m. tomorrow. He handed over the parts they'd need and told them that the amount of food they'd get depended on the gear they cranked out. Of course he had to be smart, so he activated his watchful eye skill. The dude's inventory was absolutely stacked. He still needed 22 days worth of XP to hit level 6. He had 24 hours left to finish the mission, so he decided to catch some Z's. And just like that, night fell. The next day, he woke up feeling totally refreshed. The others not so much. They'd pulled an all-nighter grinding out everything he'd asked for. Our boy gave everyone props, saying they did an awesome job. The doctor patted the nurse on the shoulder, who looked like she was about to keel over from exhaustion. He tossed a card to each of them, saying that now it was time to fight. Yexu was shook. She seriously thought that once they were done, he was going to off everyone, so she already had a whole escape plan ready. Turns out he wasn't as savage as she thought. Hate to break it to you, girl, but he's actually way worse than you think. She then asked how to even use the card, and he realized nobody had a clue what they were doing in this world yet. He decided to help her out a bit more as a little thank you for everything she did in his past life. He showed her the system and the option to use the card and make all the food appear. She saw that and got super hyped. With that, everyone activated their cards and started to grub. Seeing how clueless she still was, he decided to drop a few tips, in case she could be useful down the line. He told everyone to bounce from the area in the afternoon. That's because by then he would have cleared out all the zombies. He reminded them not to lose track of the time. Yexu told him to be careful since there were a ton of zombies outside, but he just said she should probably worry more about herself. When he stepped out for real, it was crawling with zombies and a whole horde was nearby, but after a full night of sleep, he was so ready for this. He smoked the first zombie, and it dropped a fishing rod. He caught the body before it could hit the floor, trying to attract as little attention as possible, and just like that, he started clearing the hallway. It didn't take long before he was heading for the door. He opened the list and wondered how the zombies were even pulling this off while being, dead. This one poor zombie was just chilling in the bathroom, but as soon as our boy got close, it spun around and made a run for it, but with its pants down, it totally face-planted like a doofus. Lindsay took out another one. You had to be careful, because in the gym, people were way more buff, so it was pretty common for their zombie versions to be stronger too. Then he spotted the women's restroom. He crept up kind of worried there might be a survivor in there. Then he snapped back to reality, thinking it's the freaking apocalypse, who cares if he's in the women's room. He slowly started to go in. He didn't see anyone at first and began checking each stall until in one he heard 2 creatures making noise. When he opened it, he saw that the romance was still alive even after death. It was a shame, but he had to break up that connection. They sensed his attack, but totally whiffed. There was a bottle on the floor, and once again they tripped right over it. With that, he finished off 2 more. This guy is seriously unhinged. He even started taking pictures of the couple. He weirdly felt like he recognized them. It seems that in his past life, they always hunted as a team and had this insane synergy that made them unbeatable. But it was a total bummer that this time they cashed out on day 3 without doing a single thing. As always, it was time to check the loot. It was a fusion card that let him combine 2 items. Make a new one, maybe even level it up to silver rank. Then he glanced back and spotted this weird glow coming from one of the stalls. He went to check it out and saw a chest, just like floating over a pentagram. Turns out it was a wild chest, and he had to hang out there for like 30 seconds to pop it open. He waited it out, and boom, a green apple appeared. He was seriously praying it was some kind of strength item, or an agility item. He peeped the description and saw it jacked up his physique stat by 2 attribute points, which is basically just health. He would have rather had agility, but whatever, it wasn't a total bust. He washed the apple and scarfed it down right away, totally stoked that he's eating way better in this life than his last one. He bounced from the restroom thinking, dang, this place is hooking me up with some seriously good stuff. Outside, he ran into another mob, and man, this time he saw the entire horde. He slid into a corner to keep from pulling all the zombies at once. As soon as 2 of them shuffled close, he wrecked them right in the neck. Another 2 shambled over, and they went down too. Seriously, this dude is just mowing down these creatures, burning through all his energy to stay strong. Then inside a box, he found a lion bracelet. It gave him a 10% chance to intimidate an enemy for 1 second, making them totally freeze up. The system then pulled up all his equipment slots and broke down what could go in each one. He slapped that lion bracelet on immediately. Then he went back to casually strolling through the gym, sipping on a juice box. That's when he opened a door and bam, a room crawling with zombies. Or maybe they were dead doctors from Mount Shore. He figured based on how messed up everything was and the way the disaster started, it had to be a zombie boss, one of those creatures that's way stronger than others at the same level. They're the type that usually chow down on humans, and when there's no one left, they'll even eat other zombies. The stronger the original creature, the easier it turns into a zombie, which is why out of a trillion, mosquitoes only like one will turn into a zombie, and usually mutated animals also hunt zombies. Then he noticed something from all the deep cuts on the bodies. It looked like a zombie cat did all this. He always hated these types the most since their senses were crazy sharp. If that thing was still around, it probably already knew he was here, meaning he might have just walked straight into a trap. He focused trying to pick up on anything getting close. That's when some gut feeling put him on high alert. The second he snapped his eyes open, the cat nearly snatched him. He barely dodged and hurled his, boomerang sword. Turns out this thing wasn't just a mutant creature, it was a boss. It had insane agility and could create illusions, cutting all damage by 50%. It also had talents for a sharp attack and heightened vision. The list of stats for this thing was crazy long, and Lindsay knew that meant it would drop some awesome rewards. Even though this was a seriously tough creature, he still had 10 years of experience fighting stuff exactly like this. The hack system detected the zombie cat and popped a mission to kill it. The mission was called the Ungrateful Zombie Kitty. That's because the gym used to rescue a bunch of cats from around the city, but after the apocalypse kicked off and one of them turned, it went on a crazy killing spree. The mission reward was the same amount of experience as killing 100 level 1 zombies. But then get this, the true system kicked in, and the hack system reactivated the mission, juicing the reward. Now, instead of 100 XP, he'd get 300, and he had 24 hours to get it done. He started to feel like it was kinda sus that this system was being so generous. He remembered from his past life the system was full of dirty tricks. It always promised things would be easy, but when he actually got there, it'd be some invincible creature. At first, a 1% item drop chance didn't seem so unfair, but when people started grouping up, everyone realized the rewards weren't even close to enough. However, he was getting these crazy good missions compared to the norm, so obviously he accepted. He had 24 hours to waste this ungrateful cat, which was just calmly licking its paw. He knew this. Animal was a specialist in counterattacks, so he couldn't just charge in. Instead, he sat down, pulled out his phone, and started reading a manhwa. The second he laughed, the cat lost its temper, shot up, and jumped right at him. In the exact same moment, Lindsay shot up and jumped back, dodging the attack completely. He transformed his phone into a katana, and the cat backed off, but then it rushed him again. Once more, he dodged and found an opening to strike its back. But the cat just smirked as if to say that even though he was smart, it had already figured out his moves. It dodged again, but our boy found a chance to cut its claws. Immediately, the cat hissed that it would never forgive him for that, but our boy just clapped back that it couldn't win without its claws. Suddenly, the cat activated some kind of eye ability our boy totally knew would pull him into an illusion. He found himself in this trippy other world with a giant cat that had limbs all over its face. But for him, a dude who'd lived through 10 years of the apocalypse, this was child's play. The cat was totally confused why the dude wasn't freaking out. Our boy slashed its eye, completely breaking the illusion. At that moment, the creature tried to run, but of course he wasn't about to let it escape. He threw his boomerang sword, catching it right in the neck, and the boss was instantly defeated. He completed the mission, got a ton of experience leveled up, and even unlocked an achievement. Everyone in the city was totally freaking out trying to figure out who this guy was that kept popping up in the server-wide announcements. Then the narrator chimes in thinking it's funny to have some girl declare she wants to marry him, even though she has no idea who this crazy dude even is. Another person chimes in that they'd rather stay anonymous. Meanwhile, some guy sipping wine realizes the name means he's probably from Dragon City and starts thinking about getting an expert like that for his crew. Would totally boost their chances of making it. The whole place was buzzing because everyone found out he took down that beast. He knew the more hype he got, the more he'd have to stay low-key. Next thing you know, he just grabs a chair and plops down. Obviously, the lazy dude needed a breather after that fight. He was pretty stoked he won without getting too wrecked, but still, you gotta be more careful. For icing, the first boss, he scored a cool 1,000 prestige points and 1,000 gold. At that point, he was sitting on a total of 2,000 prestige, 5,000 gold, and 4 attribute points to blow. The Bronze Lamama title hooked him up with a +2 to all his stats and dropped every other creature's resistance by 5%, but to rock that, he'd have to ditch the first kill title since it gave him a bigger stat boost. He ended up making the swap and started wondering how OP he'd get when he finally changed classes. A whole half an hour went by. This dude was so lazy, he literally chilled before even bothering to get his loot chest. Inside, he found this zombie kitty horn. When he blows it, he can summon a zombie cat to back him up for 30 minutes every 48 hours. The best part, the cat would have like 60% of our main character's power, and every kill it got would count as his. The only bummer was, the kitty didn't have that 100% drop rate, but for a guy rolling solo, having a sidekick to draw aggro was totally clutch. Of course, he knew the claws, eyes, skin, and all that other gnarly stuff from the cat could be crafted into some sweet gear, so he just yeeted the whole body into his inventory. A bit later, he bounced to the warehouse because he remembered the silver chest was there. But when he cracked it open, he was totally freaked. It was packed with skulls and a bunch of eyeballs just rolling around on the floor. It looked like the zombie cat was the one who made that whole freaky scene. For real, only in an apocalypse would you find a creature that collects eyeballs? He knew this little weirdo was a hoarder, so he started scouting the area. Trying to find more loot, he spotted a dumbbell jammed into a treadmill and was like, is that the cat's toy or something? Besides that weirdly amazing masterpiece, the room was pretty much empty. The only thing left to check out was whatever was under a white sheet, and big shocker, it was the silver chest that was supposed to be there all along. He got 20 prestige points just for finding it. But it had like a 60-second timer to open. I don't even know why they bother with a timer when they always get it open anyway. Inside, he found a white cloak and a skill book. The book gave him the double slash ability, which sets off a blast that deals 70% of his stats in damage. The catch was, you had to land both hits, but he was like, I got this no problem. He instantly learned the skill, and now he had 2 out of the 5 skills he could equip. He also got the white wing cloak, which lets him glide once every 20 minutes. Dude, his inventory is already getting stacked, but the design of this thing is so bad. He's like, it looks like a half-plucked chicken. The original plan was just to take out Li Hao and leave his family out of it. But like, why do that when he could just send them all packing? Yeah, my dude, this guy is not exactly a hero. Now the only thing left to do there was finish the quest to kill 100 creatures. He walked into a room and shut the door. He knocked on it, and every single zombie whipped around to look at him. He fired up the chicken cloak saying he was dying to try it out. He leapt out in front of the zombies, and our boy was airborne. He swooped down like he was going for gold, smacking them right on the head. He built up speed, gliding to the other side and looking super cool doing it. Whoa, this gliding is basically flying. He's just like chilling up in the air. Then he was like, all right, time to test the new skill. He pointed at a zombie and let a slash fly. 2 zombies got insta-deleted, and man, that skill seriously made a huge explosion. Even he was shocked by the mess. His epic glide finally ran out of juice, and he had to touch down so he wouldn't get flung across the room. He was actually impressed. The zombie was way tougher than he thought. The skill was as fast as the boomerang, but like way more destructive. Now that he was done messing around, it was time to get serious. We just saw a ton of pop-ups showing him raking in gold. He just kept clearing out the whole gym, grinding the entire zone. Before you knew it, there were just piles of dead zombies everywhere. But he started noticing his luck was tanking because the poor dude was only getting basic materials. He was so lazy, he decided he'd just pick up all the loot boxes after he was finished. He even sat down in the chair just to claim his system rewards. He was about to get a hack and some new gear. He asked for the gear first, saving the best for last. The system announced that a bronze-ranked item was being crafted. What he got was a blood absorption ring, which turned 5% of the damage he dished out back into his own health. He immediately realized that against low-level mobs, he was basically unkillable now. Man, at this rate, this guy's going to be a total e-boy with all these rings he's putting on. The funny thing is, you can't even see any of them on his fingers. He's just rocking that ridiculous chicken cloak. Then he told the system it was time for the hack, and he was hoping for something good. Of course, it's got to be the famous hook, but we'll have to wait for the next chapter to see. He was totally shook when he saw the perfect hack for him. It was basically an auto-collect hack that snagged every single drop from the creatures. He knew right away that from now on, all he had to do was the fun part, and all the loot would just come to him. For a lazy psycho, this was absolutely perfect. He was a little worried that people would watch him take down mobs and notice that he somehow insta-looted everything. A ton of loot boxes. So he hit up the system like, yo, what's the deal with my hack being stuck at level 1? The system basically told him if he scores the same talent again, it will level up. But honestly, he was way more hyped for something new next time. He glanced over at the mountain of zombie corpses and was like, time for a test run. As he strolled through the carnage, all the loot cards just zipped right to him. And get this. The hack was so OP, it even auto-sorted his inventory. It was super satisfying, perfect for anyone who can't stand a mess. But then it hit him, he'd been chilling here for way too long. He had to bounce, get to the Leaf family's village, and kickstart his revenge tour. Cut to the Lime mansion where Lyle was just vibing on the couch totally unbothered while the rest of the world was basically ending in the apocalypse. But then he peeked at the clock and totally flipped. He jumped up, smacked the first poor soul he saw, and started screaming about where those 2 clowns were and why they were so late. The butler tried to explain that his 2 guards got jumped by a massive horde over at the university and were running behind. Leal was absolutely raging, blaming the zombies for messing up his whole vibe, especially since he'd taken out a zombie and got 0 XP for it. See, his genius plan was to have his bodyguards basically beat them to a pulp so he could swoop in and get the last hit, but for some reason, the XP payout was trash. Just then, they heard a noise someone was at the door. And shout out to the artist who forgot the MC's hair color and just switched it up from blue to blonde after 30 chapters. Anyway, he asks this dude Wrong if he found the girl and that orphan. Wrong's like, yeah, we found the girl, but the kid is long gone. Blondie tells him to drag her in so he can chew her out for hiding. But Wrong just drops this suitcase on the floor and says she's already gone. She's in here. The look on Blondie's face went from 0 to 100 real quick. He was totally freaked. Wrong explained they found her in the warehouse behind the school with some guy's messed up clothes next to her. He also mentioned it looked like she'd gone through some seriously messed up stuff before the end. Wrong was about to give him the gory details, but Leo bolted yelling for a bucket. That's when Wrong was like, whoever did this must have really had it out for her. He then added that the person responsible might be coming for Leo next. Leo just brushed it off, saying it's obviously because she was the hottest girl on campus or whatever. Then it clicked that the one person who hated her guts the most was Lindsay. But nah, he thought no way Lindsay could pull this off. He's just some orphan with no backup. Plus, they hadn't even dropped the big secret yet, so Lindsay couldn't know she was playing him the whole time. Wrong chimed in asking if this was Linen's kid, Lindsay. Leo confirmed, and Wrong was like, well, whether he's strong or not, Lindsay has someone seriously powerful on his side. Maybe even the 100 bodyguards we brought won't be enough. Leo freaked like, how is that even possible? You're one of the top 10 strongest guys in all of Dragon City. He basically told Wrong to go train more or get more backup, do literally anything to keep him from getting offed. Wrong just told him not to sweat it, that he'd put his own life on the line to protect him. Dude Wrong is willing to die for this spoiled brat. Guess he's not a big fan of living. Meanwhile, back in the forest, zombies were dropping like flies. Our boy had already hit level 8. He was actually kind of shocked at how fast he was power leveling without even hitting up a dungeon, and now he was standing right in front of Leo's mansion, ready to serve up some serious payback to that jerk. The mansion was crawling with guards patrolling all over the place, but our guy, he was chilling in a tree like a pro. He hopped down, snuck across the lawn, and hit a secret switch. Just like that, a hidden passage that almost no one knew about slid open. All these guards were basically useless against someone who knew all the secrets. As he crept closer to the house, he stayed in the shadows, scoping things out. He immediately clocked. The crew is part of the mercenary guild. In his past life, these were the guys Leal trusted with everything, and the same guys he despised more than anyone. Too bad for them, he'd been studying this family for a hot minute. And so far, their setup was tight. He couldn't find a lot of weak spots. But then, he saw something. He recognized the guy, the notorious Wrong Gene. Back in his old life, this dude became a literal war god and was always running the mercs. Eventually, Leal sent this guy to hunt him down. He got cornered by him more times than he could count. Wrong was without a doubt one of the baddest dudes he ever had to face. But he'd slipped through Wrong's fingers so many times that the guy actually got nicknamed the Disgraced. It felt like destiny, them meeting again like this. Just then, Wrong felt something was off. He whipped around and our boy just barely ducked out of sight. Super risky. But man, it would be perfect if someone this important to the family bit the dust early. He slipped on the mask that concealed his presence. And at that exact second, the guards walked right past him. I mean, I knew the mask was good for stealth, but damn, my guy was literally standing right there and was totally invisible. Our boy was getting antsy, not wanting to blow this chance. But Wrong stayed on high alert, trying to shake the creepy feeling that he was being watched. He told his crew to lock the place down even tighter, thinking he had to take out whoever was lurking around. Hours dragged on, and soon it was midnight. Back in the living room, Leal was whining on the sofa, saying it was totally lame to think someone was out there. He was convinced it was just zombies, but Wrong said it was better to be cautious because he was certain they were being targeted. Leal flipped out and chucked his watch on the floor, yelling about how this jerk was taking forever to show up and end him, making him wait around. Totally losing it from boredom, one of the servants said if he was that bored, they could totally find something for him to do. The other one got all hyped, saying she had an idea, and asked Wrong if he'd caught a zombie today. Wrong was like, yep, saying he brought it in for study, thinking it could help them cook up some new zombie-fighting weapons. Li Hao just said there were tons of zombies outside, and he wanted to play with this one. Wrong knew it was a seriously bad idea, but figured, hey, maybe it would chill the kid out. Li Hao shot back that he wasn't the one taking any risks, and besides, the village was full of people. Wrong just glanced at the guy next to him and told him to bring the zombie they'd captured. A few minutes later, this super jacked zombie gets dragged in fighting against its chains while a bunch of guys struggle to hold it. Yeah, you could tell this thing was on another level. Li Hao, though, didn't even flinch and just ordered them to bring in the giant cage, where 6 girls were just staring at each other. trying to guess what fresh heck was about to go down. The second he rang a bell, they all jumped. The girls started freaking out, slamming on the cage bars. It was obvious Li Hao was majorly messed up. Seriously, it felt like this apocalypse was run by people with an IQ of 16. With that, he tossed a key to one of the guys, telling him to open the cage because he wanted to play a little game. The guys went in, dragging the zombie with them. Li Hao told them to stick it at the entrance, take off the chains, and just shove it inside the cell. All of a sudden, a guy dropped to his knees behind him, begging him not to. He said it was just too twisted. Another guy in a suit quickly apologized for the kneeling dude, explaining he was new around here. Li Hao strolled over and asked, "Are you trying to give me orders?" The guy on the ground just kept repeating himself, pleading for the girls' lives. The other one quickly added that he'd never dream of bossing the young master around. Li Hao just smiled, saying it was nice to see someone with enough guts to actually challenge him. Since the guy was so brave, it was time to test if he could actually back it up. He then ordered a few of his goons to take him down. One of them stepped up to slug the guy in the face, but he blocked the first punch like it was nothing. Li Hao just watched, totally amused by the whole show. Still on his knees, the guy twisted the attacker's arm, making him yelp. The old man was impressed, thinking this kneeling dude was way stronger than the bully. But of course, Li Hao now wanted him gone for the disrespect, so he called 2 more guys over to jump him. The younger guards wondered why he was even wasting time on some dude who'd lost his powers. Fists were flying, and finally they got the poor guy pinned. He was getting completely wrecked, taking punch after punch right to the face. The guy basically became a human punching bag. But Li Hao told them not to finish him off, saying since he wanted to protect the girls so badly, it would be the perfect show for him to watch them all get torn apart. The poor girls were just frozen stiff with fear, and the men started unchaining the zombie. They were really going to throw that monster in. There. This world is so messed up. The zombie wasted 0 time and was on the first girl's neck in seconds. The poor guy outside was just sobbing, looking like he'd totally given up on life. Li Hao mocked him, saying if he was so tough, he should get in there and save the girls. The other soldiers chimed in, saying it was a brilliant idea, but even they were thinking this was way too far. I mean, even in an apocalypse, you don't treat people like that. They dragged the guy's body away while the zombie just ripped through everyone in the cage. When it was done, they chucked the guy inside. Right then, the zombie whipped around and charged straight for him. The guy froze and apologized to his mom, saying he couldn't protect her or himself today. But then out of nowhere, something just clicked. He wasn't going to die because she was waiting for him. The guy shot to his feet and slammed a punch into the zombie's jaw. He grabbed it in a massive bear hug and dragged the zombie across the cage. He smashed its back against the bars, but it wasn't going to be that easy. The zombie hit back with a bone-crushing grip. Meanwhile, Li Hao was just watching, commenting that this was the best entertainment he'd seen in forever. Even though the guy was beaten up, he got up and landed another solid hit to the zombie's face. After a crazy fight, he dropped to his knees. A zombie was on him, but he was completely gassed. He whispered an apology, saying he should have listened to her. Meanwhile, Rong was watching, noting it was a shame the kid died. 1 second, the guards felt bad for him. The next, they were griping that he died too fast. But if he died fast, he was about to make a comeback. In that moment, he woke up as a zombie. Outside, Lindsay saw his chance had finally arrived. The second he spotted someone who looked like him, he took him out. He swiped the guy's clothes and headed for the door. People asked why Joe was there. He just played it cool, saying he saw someone slacking off and came to tell him to get back to work. 2 guys came up from behind. One of them was complaining they'd been on patrol for over a day with 0 sleep, and our boy commented that they were being treated like they were totally disposable. Then the round-headed dude asked if Gia didn't seem a bit taller than usual. A second later, Lindsay knocked them both out cold, leaving them kissing the pavement. He just calmly walked through the mansion. Nobody there was even on his level. Still, one of them managed to fire a flare-up, but our boy yeeted a knife, hitting it midair. It was a real shame for these guys, but he knew their whole playbook. The system pinged. Security has been defeated. The path of revenge has begun. The mission was called Gia's Revenge, and so nobody could bail. After ticking off the user, he had to take out all 269 people in the village. He scored another basic hack and some bronze gear. Our guy was instantly like, deal, saying this gave him even more of a reason to go after Li Hao. Then the mission popped up saying a revenge barrier was on. Basically, if anyone bounced from this place, he could track them for a whole month. He was totally hyped because this meant nobody was getting away, no matter where they ran. But the second he hit accept kill notifications started blowing up his screen. He had to book it and figure out what was going down in the mansion. It's like these dudes forgot they were the only ones left since they'd already dealt with all the women. Seriously, what the heck? Just then, a voice echoed out, asking why they weren't coming to play with him instead. The voice kept talking, making everyone jump to their feet, totally confused. The dude with the red hair could already tell that whoever was talking had a way stronger vibe than him. Li Hao totally freaked, realizing this person was here to take him out. Oh, and get this, Li Hao's hair is suddenly blue again, and Rong's is now red. Guess we need to start a GoFundMe for the artist's memory meds. Anyway, the now red-haired Rong stood in the middle of the room with his crew and yelled for the person to show their face. He was bugging, demanding to know who was mowing everyone down so easily. The voice shot back that he was human, but he was about to become the Reaper for every single soul in that room. The guys were totally freaking out, but Rong told them to chill. They spread out, each one covering a different angle. And that's when the legendary flashbang dropped right in the middle of the room. It went off, and nobody could see a thing. Meanwhile, our boy just strolls in hands in his pockets like he's on a Fashion Week runway. The second he was inside, he unleashed his spike attack. Half their crew started getting skewered, and the boomerang slash took out 2 more. Rong had zero clue who he was even looking at. Then off to the side, another grenade appeared. An explosion ripped through the place, and our boy just walked on totally unfazed. When the smoke cleared, Rong was still trying to process what just happened, but all his guys were already gone. One of the men said it had to be some kind of magic because he saw a spinning sword just tearing through everybody. Rong asked how many people were left, and the guy said at least 66 of their brothers were still up with a few others hurt. Meanwhile, Li Hao was absolutely raging, telling Rong to hurry up and get payback by wasting the person who wrecked his plans. Rong ordered his men to hunt this guy down because he was sure there was no way he could take out almost 100 people all by himself. He then turned to a servant and told him to get the master to the hideout. The servant knew, though, that this mystery person was probably watching their every move. Our boy was just picking them off one by one, totally savoring their panic. Just like he figured the men were trying to group up and make a run for it. He pulled up the system and checked, finding out that Rong was already level 5. He heard a bunch of guys yelling for the coward to show himself and thought it was so lame how they kept repeating that. He decided to summon his kitty to give them a bit more entertainment. In that instant, the cat appeared right beside him. He whipped out a knife and chucked it into the room, slicing a candle holder that crashed to the floor, sending glass flying everywhere. But before the guys could even process what was happening, the cat was already on the first one's neck. Our boy used the chaos to slip into the room and start taking out even more of them. Another room cleared. He dipped out again. Rong caught a glimpse of him, but realized he couldn't see his name or level. He yelled out asking who he was and what his deal was. Our boy just sized Rong up, feeling pretty disappointed. This dude was nothing like the war god he remembered. He then told them he was here to show them what real despair feels like. In a flash, he blew past 3 guys and was face to face with Rong. The poor dude couldn't even react and was shaking all over. He dropped to his knees, knowing he didn't stand a chance. A lackey went after him, but our boy said he was gunning for Li Hao. Because with the revenge barrier, there was nowhere for that guy to hide. He kicked Rong, asking how he could call himself the leader of the mercs acting like this, but Rong just shot back that his whole crew had been wiped out, so it's not like he was the leader of anything anymore. Our guy smirked, seeing that Rong finally got it, that he'd lost everything he'd worked so hard for all these years. Rong then begged him to at least tell him who he was, so he wouldn't die wondering. Our boy said he never expected this to be so satisfying and slowly walked closer to him. Then he just snapped his neck, dropping him. Rong hit the floor, and our boy planted a foot on his head, saying he remembered when Rong did the exact same thing and called him an ant. He stomped on him a few more times, saying that Rong taught him a valuable lesson. Don't run your mouth in front of an enemy. Just finish them. It was way better watching him go out filled with regret. Now that Rong was gone, the Li family was seriously crippled, but it looked like our boy was drunk on revenge, stumbling around a bit. And with that, he walked out of the mansion, leaving a pile of bodies in his wake. Somewhere else, a freaked-out Li Hao was saying there was no way this guy could have followed him here. The butler told him not to sweat it, promising that Rong would handle it. But then, bam, the door caved in, looking like someone got thrown right into it. In that moment, Li Hao knew. The guy who was basically the main character sent to end him had arrived. The butler tells him to chill, saying he already sent everyone else to the secret base, so nobody would have a clue they were there. Liao is totally losing it. Like, how the heck did that orphan find such a legit assassin? The butler's like, could it be some secret weapon his dad Lai Yan left for him? But Liao is all, no way, that's impossible. After they took out his dad, they made sure that kid got nothing. If it wasn't for the boss being so stubborn, they wouldn't have even let the kid live. Our boy shoves the dude away from the metal door and yells so everyone can hear that he finally gets it all. Inside, Liao's like, why am I hearing Lin's voice? And our boy just says that apparently he's had a target on his back since the day he was born. There was still so much he didn't know. From inside, Liao screams that he should have just offed that brat when he had the shot. But our boy wants answers like, who was Li Yan? And why did they want to completely erase the Lin family? Liao just laughs, saying it looks like the orphan is totally clueless about his own dad. Then Liao spills that his father was about to get a huge promotion when Lai Yan, our boy's dad, ratted him out. That totally wrecked all the Li family's plans and their business, which is why they made sure the entire Lin family was taken out. At that point, Liao says it's our boy's turn to talk and demands to know where he found this pro assassin, but our boy just shoots back that it's pointless for him to know since the whole Lee family is about to go poof. Liao just laughs and tells him to keep dreaming right until our boy smashes the doorknob with a kick. Just like that, the door swings open and there's the little kitten right beside him. Dude, the poor butler comes charging in to throw a punch. Our boy just lazily dodges it. The kitten jumps right in his path and get this, bam, the butler clocks the little guy instead. The kitten's 30 minutes. We're up, and it starts to just fade away. Right then, our boy gets right in his face, rips off his mask, and goes, "Lindsay's here." The old guy is totally shocked, asking if he was the assassin behind all of this. And that's the moment Liao realizes he's seriously messed up. The butler is all, "No way a kid like you could have taken down someone so skilled." Our boy just warns the butler that the Lee family's martial arts are basically useless in the apocalypse. Liao keeps whining that it's impossible he got this strong all by himself. Our boy tells him he's about to find out if he's strong enough to take them both on. Then he just launches himself at the butler. He crosses his arms and blocks the punch. Whoa, he's actually holding his own against the guy. Our boy is kinda impressed, muttering that not even Wrong could have taken a hit like that. That's when the old dude decides to go full-on beast mode. He rips all his clothes off, turning crazy muscular. Our boy whips out his sword and takes a swing at him. The butler calls him a coward for fighting dirty, but he just snaps back that in an apocalypse there are no rules. In that split second, he spins the sword and unleashes a double slash. The butler dodges it, but psych, it's a boomerang, and it's coming right back from behind. And just like that, the butler takes the first hit to his arm. The old guy says he can't believe that after 50 years of training, he's going to lose this easily. That's when our boy's explosive combo goes off on the butler's arm. At the same time, Lindsay closes the distance, and then bam! He nails the butler right on the chin, saying he's got to make sure he's really down for the count. It's a bummer he was so strong, but he just couldn't roll with the punches of the apocalypse. It just goes to show you got to be smart and always stay on your toes about the situation and how it changes. That's when he spots Liao passed out on the floor. He thinks Liao is totally useless and walks over with his sword. He gives him a little poke to see if the dude will wake up. And of course, in a flash, he leaps up screaming. Our boy's like, "You gonna stop playing dead now?" Dude, he gives him a beatdown that is not pretty. Liao starts screaming for help, yelling that. His dad won't let this slide, but our boy just keeps twirling the sword. Liao starts begging him to just end it quickly. Lindsay tells him not to sweat it, he won't forget. Then he pulls out this dull knife that can barely cut and takes the first swipe at Liao's thighs. Our boy gives a fake apology saying that oops, this apocalypse is full of crappy weapons, but sooner or later he'd get it right, he promised. And then he swipes again. Our boy says it's a shame Liao will never feel even 1% of the pain he went through for 10 years. Liao, all confused, asks what he means by 10 years since he only started messing with our boy 3 years ago and thinking about taking him out. Our boy tells him to cut the crap because it's playtime. Gives him a little slice here, then another one. There. For every cut, he names a reason or a feeling he had to deal with for the last 10 years. One on the chest for taking away the family he never even got to meet. Then he says he's tired of giving out reasons, and from now on he's just doing it because it feels good. He opens his inventory and pulls out this super weird item, and it's like, what is he even going to do with that? Liao asks what he's planning. Our boy says it was actually Liao who came up with this little technique. Totally floored, Liao says he thought of something like that but never told a soul. Lindsay just keeps making him hurt for a long time. A few hours go by and Liao is an absolute wreck. Our boy mutters that he can't die that easy, and it's not even 1% of what he used to do to people. But looking at the mess, our boy is kinda over the idea of finishing off someone so pathetic. Still, he gives him a few prods to see if he's faking it until Liao's body just gives out, and he says that now he's finally hit his limit. Our boy walks away and unleashes the double explosion slash. The dude even had to step out of the room to grab an umbrella. Outside, the full moon is shining bright, and our boy says the Lee family story. Okay. So, maybe that wasn't so bad. Just then, the system dings him. He's unlocked the Vengeful Heart talent, and it says it was a piece of cake. He's like, easy. That was the hardest thing ever, you jerk. The system breaks it down. Skills are learned from books, but talents only pop up after you go through some serious stuff. The Vengeful Heart talent amps him up, and the more he despises the person he's fighting, the stronger he gets. Our dude is totally impressed. Seeing it boosts his strength by 20% at just level 1, so it could get way more insane for wiping out the entire Lee family. He's set to get a new hack and a bronze level piece of gear. He cracks open the chest, dying to see the loot, and gets of all things a magical girl's wand. The only problem? It's an exclusive item for the magic class, so you just know some girl is going to pop up needing his help soon. He grumbles that it's useless and just shoves it into his inventory to sell later. Glancing at his list, this auto loot hack is turning out to be a lifesaver. The thing is, in the apocalypse, when you take someone out, their inventory just vanishes, and you can only grab what they're wearing. That's why in the future, it was smarter to control people instead of killing them, because you could farm way more items over time. One of the items he snagged in all the chaos was a purification necklace. It adds one more stat and can clear a negative status every 12 hours. It's not as strong as his meditation one, but it'll be way more clutch in a fight, so he slaps it on. Alright, time for the main event. He tells the system to show him the new hack he's getting. Man, a loading bar even shows up. The ability he gets is absolute enslavement. It lets him turn a zombie into a loyal follower who will do anything to protect him. In the 10 years of his past life, Lindsay can't even remember seeing anyone with a power this broken. He literally pinches his face, thinking he's got to be dreaming. Then a light bulb goes off. If the zombie is completely loyal, that means he won't have to do all the dirty work anymore. He was kind of looking forward to the lone wolf life, but having a minion who'll obey his every command and die for him, there's no way he's saying no to that. Not to mention how OP this talent could get if it levels up. The system explains that the more zombies he controls, the bigger his crew gets. Our boy is already daydreaming about leading an army to take over the city, but he knows that's not happening anytime soon. The best plan is to find one of those zombies that's destined to become a zombie king, since those have major potential. The only catch is not knowing if they'll get the same shot at greatness as his slave, but for now, it's time to raid the Lee family vault because everyone knows they were rolling in treasure. But when he gets inside, it's just packed with millionaire junk that's worthless in this new world. Weirdly, he decides to grab the paintings because he's got a feeling they'll be useful for something. After grabbing the good stuff and trashing the rest, he strolls out humming. It was nighttime, and zombies get way more dangerous, so there was no reason not to crash for a while in the fancy villa. What he doesn't know, though, is that in the room he's walking into, there's a zombie just standing in the middle, which is super weird because he was sure he took out everyone in that place. But here's this poor zombie who clearly went through a lot. Its stats were buffed because of the time of day, and it even had an epic rank talent that would boost its power as it leveled up. Our guy sees the stats and immediately knows this is the perfect test subject for his new enslavement talent. The creepy thing is, the creature is just standing there, not doing anything. Lindsay even thinks it's weird and is like, "Yo, you're a zombie, aren't you supposed to bite me?" But seeing its mind stat is a 3, he just assumes the guy must have been a total airhead as a human or something. He asks the system if he can really enslave this zombie since its stats are so high. The system gives him a yes since it's still weaker than our boy. Whoa, he gets all thoughtful. That mind level is crazy low, but he's got to get stronger fast, so he tells the system he's enslaving the monster. The screen pops up and he hits yes. Suddenly, red energy starts swirling around the creature, but he notices the zombie seems to be fighting back somehow. He's startled, and then out of nowhere, the zombie just calmly scratches its head. Then a window pops up asking him to name the creature. Dude is so savage. Since it's tall and buff, he names it Big Idiot. The system chimes in, "Congratulations on successfully enslaving Big Idiot." Another stat window appears for Big Idiot, and man, it has everything a person does. But the system warns that he can't gain prestige or use an inventory. Our boy then tells Big Idiot to show him his strength since he's betting that cage can't hold him. Right then, Big Idiot grabs the iron bars and just starts ripping an opening. In a flash, he's out, and dude, he's running straight for Lindsay, but out of nowhere, he just stops. Apparently, he was just messing around making our guy look like a total dork. Instantly, our boy starts equipping some spare items on him. The weird part is that now the system message says the zombie doesn't have a mind stat anymore. Our guy figures that's to be expected since the creature was already so OP. He then tells Big Idiot he's going to bed and orders him to watch the door. Another peaceful night goes by for our lazy hero, and he wakes up in his room. He opens the door, and Big Idiot is standing right there on guard. Our dude gives him a nod of approval, patting him on the back, but then gets real and asks if he was down there chowing down on the bodies. The creature's like, "Nah," and our dude realizes this guy is totally different, so he dips into another room and whips out a massive spread of food. He starts digging in, but then something lands on his back. He turns, and it's Big Idiot totally drooling and begging for a bite. Our guy's got an endless supply, so he's like, "Yeah, dude, go for it." In his past life, he can't remember any zombies actually eating human food, but hey, desperate times. So he summons another feast and tells the big guy to take a seat. He was kind of stressing about where to stash all these food cards, but it looks like he just found the perfect solution. The OG plan was to get his payback around level 5 or 6, but now he's already level 8 and still locked out of the dungeons. Maybe with this map, the gear, and Big Idiot's muscle, he could finally switch his class and become a Shadow of Illusion. If that's the play, then it's time to hit up the MTO Museum and snag that class change scroll. He remembers that these ancient scrolls are the key to changing your class. Once you step into the class change zone, you've got to beat 3 challenges before the timer runs out, or else you get wiped. He remembers back in his old life, the day he went to get that scroll was the same day he got sent some vids of Yu Jin getting real friendly with Liho. He vented to his friends, and they cooked up a plan to get back at Liho. But our dude had no clue they'd already been paid off, so he got played and thrown into a class change zone. Their whole scheme was to either take him out or make sure he disappeared without a trace. But the crazy part is, he actually conquered that zone, snagged a new class, and lived with a gnarly scar on his face for 10 years. All that went down on the very first day of the apocalypse, and since they were all still cooped up in a room, the modern museum should be totally empty. Now that he's back, he knows things are going to go way smoother this time. Our boy is seriously impressed with how human his zombie buddy looks, and a genius idea just clicks. Outside, he's totally geared up. He even managed to make Big Idiot look pretty normal to avoid drawing any unwanted attention. The scene flips to the modern museum where a whole horde of creatures is coming right for them. Spotting a bunch of dead zombies, our guy knows they're not alone in here, so he's going to have to be super careful. Obviously, with a 100% drop rate, he's got to be the one to land the final blow. Dude, this place is stacked. He takes out 3 creatures and already scores a scroll. That scroll would let him summon a fireball, which could definitely do some damage. He's thinking that's not half bad. When he glances back, he sees some zombies checking out Big Idiot. He ducks out of sight, switching up his plan since Big Idiot is basically invisible to them. He can just let him roam around, popping open chests until he stumbles upon whoever else is here. That way, he can dodge any drama and won't have to blow his cover. The only problem with this place right now is the insane number of zombies. Even the 2 of them might not be enough to clear them all out. Meanwhile, across town, some dudes are chilling on a balcony talking about how they need to hit the museum for those scrolls. The catch is, they don't have enough people to search the whole place. Our boy is just watching from a distance, and he can even read their lips. He knows that if he can get in on their plan, it'll save him a ton of hassle. The scene cuts to a shopping mall where some guy is giving a big speech saying that the decision is final. His name's Gaodong, and he says they're waiting until they have 200 armed people to kick off the mission. But a few people push back, saying they can't wait that long because they are already strong enough. Plus, everyone's getting hangry. They need to hunt some zombies and get new gear. All of a sudden, one of the guys mouthing off gets slapped hard. A red-haired woman tells him to shut his trap and stop, trying to stir up a rebellion. But the dude Abu Slah tells Minging to get off her high horse just because she's got a bronze-level item. Then weirdly, he tells her she'd be better off just going along with his plans and doing what he says. She just scoffs and asks if he seriously thinks he's even in her league. The guy calls her some choice words and says sooner or later he's going to take her down and have his way with her. She tells him to go find a mirror and take a long, hard look at himself before he even dreams of it. His buddies just crack up and he's like, "Don't come crying to me later." While they're bickering, Gaodong comes down and tells them to cut it out and listen up. Just then, there's a knock at the door. It's our boy and Big Idiot. And when the door opens, he totally recognizes someone. It's that dude, Gaodong. And he remembers seeing him way back when he was activating the scrolls. A girl immediately asks who he is and what he's doing here. Our dude just strolls up all chill. Gaodong asks for his name and what brings him to the Reapers Club, especially since he can't pull up any info on our guy. And the weirdest part is, the dude next to him is named Big Idiot A. Level 4, Lindsay just plays it cool and says he saw a big group and was wondering if he could join up. Gaodong grins and is like, "Of course," introducing himself as the club's president. Our boy shakes his hand and lies through his teeth, saying his name is Li Lu. He introduces Big Idiot, explaining that he's mute and is basically his personal bodyguard. With that, our boy thinks to himself that Gaodong seems like a total pushover and super easy to fool. He turns to Big Idiot and tells him they're in. He seriously can't believe how easy it was to get inside. In another room, Gaodong says that since they're the new guys, he wants to know what their deal is. Lindsay says he's all about slaying zombies and leveling up, which is why he wanted to team up with a bigger crew. Gaodong gets all hyped and says if that's the case, he's got several skills. Books he can hook him up with. Our dude is kind of weirded out by how generous this guy is being. He's like, "Nah, you don't have to." But Gung is insistent, saying they're totally friends now. He drops the book on the table, and our guy is actually impressed that it's legit. It's a Berserker skill book. So it's a skill that basically makes you go rage mode but juices your stats by 50% for 2 minutes. He knows that losing "you're cool" like that for 2 minutes is pretty much the same as being a zombie in this world. Plus, you're always stronger when you can actually think straight. Gung is like, yeah, he knows the downsides of the skill are kinda gnarly, but when you're in a tight spot, it could totally save your life. But low-key, he's thinking he'd never use something so risky himself, but it's a different story. When you're just handing it off to someone else. Our guy closes the book and says he can feel that Gung is being for real about this and gives him a genuine thanks. He then asks if they're good to go because he and Big Idiot are itching to get back to slaying creatures. But Gung seems to catch a vibe from our guy's smile and tells him to hang on a sec. Our dude asks what's up, and Gung says he has one more thing for him. He whips out a card for a KFC meal and is like, why can't they eat together? Even though Gung gave him a skill that was kinda mid, he really didn't want our guy to hate him. He's like, it's all good. He and Big Idiot still need to grind and kill a ton of zombies to level up. Gung thinks our dude is holding a grudge, but in reality, he actually liked the book and was even feeling weird about taking more. But the guy just grabs his hand and shoves the card in it, telling him to take it for when he gets hungry. Since he can't exactly reveal he's already got a ton of food, he just thanks him with that he dips, and Gung tells him that if he ever needs anything, he should just come find them. As our guy walks away, he's thinking that Godong isn't such a bad dude since he was into that janky skill book. Little does he know how shady Goong actually is. All of a sudden, some dude with a cigarette gets in his face warning him not to get too chummy with Godong. He says if he keeps it up, even if he's strong. But before the dude can finish his sentence, Big Idiot yanks the guy's hand off his shoulder. Our hero just asks Big Idiot what took him so long. The guy scoffs, asking if he really thinks he's tough just because he's big, but Big Idiot stomps on the ground and lays the smack down on the fool. And just like that, one of them is already taken out. Our guy then asks if anyone else has anything to say. Obviously, the other goons drop their weapons and are like, nope, nothing, when they see their boss bailing. One of them says it's totally over now that another powerhouse has joined Goong's side, especially since he just took out one of the competitors and sent a clear message. Of course, word gets back to Goong, like right away. He's shocked that our guy wasted someone the second he left the room. The red-haired dude says it was probably him because he had a guy called Big Idiot with him. Godong just smiles, saying our boy did him a huge favor. Seeing that he took out Jiyoung, he knows. The kid wants to help him out and figures he'll be a sick addition to the team. He orders them to bury Jiyo and split his gear with the rest of the group. Goong walks off thinking to himself, today is the perfect day. You'd think our guy would be out hunting zombies, but nope, he's just chilling in a small room reading a book. Our MC asks the system if there's a chance Big Idiot could go nuts and attack him in that berserker mode. The system says, no way, because Big Idiot's loyalty is on another level way beyond just consciousness. Our guy realizes this is a total game changer. He can control what this guy does, so even if he goes full on berserk, he can still kind of point him in the right direction. He hands the book to Big Idiot and tells him to learn it. Big Idiot's response, a massive burp right in his face. Our guy is just standing there watching and finally sees that Big Idiot learned the skill. This new ally is bringing way more to the table than he ever expected. He gets up saying it's time to roll because there's a ton of stuff to grab. Over at the MTO museum, the scene cuts to him heading into a room in the back. There's a door that says Game Store. He goes up to it, touches the doorknob, and the system welcomes him, wishing him a good time. As soon as he walks in, a bunch of menus pop up in front of him. You've got windows for weapons, accessories, masks, and all that. He has 6,000 coins and knows that normally about 2,000 is plenty to buy a decent bronze rank piece of gear. Right now, he really needs pants gloves and a chest piece. But while he's just casually shopping, a hand suddenly lunges out from one of the shop windows right at him. He dodges just in the nick of time, realizing how close that was. He doesn't remember anything like this ever happening, so it looks like there's a zombie glitched into the system. All of a sudden, the creature starts climbing out of the window. He thinks it's totally weird since he's been to this store a million times in his past life, and this never happened. It gets up in his face and smacks him right across the face. He then tells the system to collect hyped to see what a glitched out zombie like this will drop. When he opens the box, he finds a single roll of toilet paper. It seems he just blew 6,000 gold on who knows what, because all his money is gone, and he's just standing there completely devastated. The next moment, he's in a warehouse that's packed with resources. He grabs something and says he's going to go check on what Big Idiot is up to outside. Turns out Big Idiot is out there taking care of anyone who gets too close. Our guy starts walking around collecting a bunch of different items. He also snags a sword ring, and the system congratulates him for it, telling him the new item can be fused with his current sword. One of the things he finds is a scarecrow that attracts any nearby creatures. Another is a boxing glove that gives a 5% chance for his attacks to pack some extra punch. And then there's a long order that juices him up with 3 more strength points. He slides on the glove and the system is like, you want to fuse these 2 swords. He knows that with a fusion feature, you'd have to have seriously bad luck for it to end up being a downgrade. The only issue is that his little cheat only messes with item drops, and that's it. But he decides to fuse them anyway because the mobs are getting way tougher, and he's desperate for new weapons. He hits confirm, and the 2 items start to merge. The system tells him to hang tight for 30 minutes, and while he waits, he has his usual chow down. So, not shockingly, he ends up with an even more epic weapon. It's a decapitation sword that amps up his attack speed every single time he takes out an enemy. He's all like, man, my luck is insane though. For real, is anyone even surprised at this point? He calls out to Big Idiot, telling him it's time to roll out to the bookstore. He sends Big Idiot in first to be the bait for the creatures, while our guy sneaks in from behind, wiping them out with his spin-to-win sword move. Just like that, he dings level 9, and now needs a whole 1,000 XP to hit level 10. He calls Big Idiot over and tells him they're about to clear out the rooftop. Half an hour later, he's got all the creatures gathered up there and tells Big Idiot to go full-on berserker mode. Instantly, the big guy lets out a roar, and his shirt just explodes into pieces. Our dude tells him to charge and just wreck everything he sees. And with that, poor Big Idiot charges in all by himself, while our guy just kicks back sipping tea like it's nothing. He's watching and realizing this berserker mode is way more OP than he thought mixing. The creature's own skills with the berserker mod pretty much doubled his stats. It's a totally perfect combo for a creature who's all about raw power. After that, Big Idiot hits his cool cooldown period. The berserker power wears off and he just collapses onto the ground, totally gassed. He goes into a recovery mode where he can chow down 30% faster. Our guy pours a potion into his mouth and strolls around while the auto loot feature vacuums up everything in the area. One of the drops is a silver chest plate that throws up a shield around him when he gets hit, and another is a potion that helps get his energy back for a couple of minutes. He then uses a scroll to power up the blood ring. The item gets a major glow up, giving him more strength, physical power, and letting him absorb even more energy. He keeps up this grind, taking out mobs, grabbing loot, and evolving. He checks his stats and realizes he's totally ready to bounce to a new zone. He walks up to a door, pushes it open, and sees a room that's been completely trashed. He just knew something this wrecked could only be the world boss. He has no clue what the monster is because in his past life, it had already been taken out. But then as he glances to the side, he's staring right at the city's shopping mall. He opens the door, and the system congratulates him, hooking him up with 10 prestige points. He gets a notification that he can't hang out there for more than 30 minutes a day. With that, he gets a huge welcome for being the first person to ever enter and is told he'll get a sweet 50% discount. He tells Big Idiot to stay on lookout duty outside like always, while he goes to check things out. The store welcomes him, and he decides to browse the goods. The shop flashes a bunch of warnings about no fighting in there, and he's super lucky that Big Idiot is standing guard outside. He scrolls through the items, but the problem is all of it is pretty basic. He's already farmed way too much stuff and has over 100 of each item just sitting in his inventory. He decides to just close the menu, since there's nothing good for him. But then the store pings him, saying that since he looks unsatisfied, it's going to show him the real high-end stuff. The system welcomes him as a VIP member of the city. The shop shows off an honor crest, a slick order uniform, and a guardian's mark. He's got 6,000 gold and decides to totally cash in on that 50% off deal for being the first player. The best choice is totally the uniform, so he buys it right then and there. Since he's pretty much broke now, he tells the system he's all done shopping. The uniform has a cool illusion skill that hides all his other gear, plus it's self-cleaning. Has temperature control and handles other bodily needs. On top of that, anyone who attacks him gets hit with a 10% stat reduction for 5 whole minutes. And finally, the uniform lets him create legit quests that other people can do, just not him, obviously. He equips all his stuff, throws on the uniform, and flips on the illusion. His armor is now totally invisible under the uniform. The system then tells him to get out because he's been there for over 30 minutes. Our guy grabs Big Idiot, and they dip out of the room. Once they're outside, he tells Big Idiot to accept a quest to destroy literally everyone. Obviously, the system is like, yeah, no, that quest makes 0 sense. So then he tells Big Idiot to go kill the legendary ranked boss, but the system rejects that one too. He turns and asks if it's possible to kill the boss in the bookstore. That quest actually goes through, and he accepts it instantly. It looks like Big Idiot actually counts as a player, which means our guy can totally game this quest system. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, a couple is hiding out in a room. The girl asks if they're going to be found, and the guy says no way. But like right next to them, a creepy red eye is just watching them. The poor girl screams, and the guy pulls her clothes, telling her to shush. But dude, it's a freaky red demon, and I'm pretty sure they're toast. The guy gets a big slimy lick across the face while he's holding her. With that, he bolts, yelling for Sam that they have to survive. He's literally seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, but then she gets her leg licked and is just yanked away. And man, there wasn't even a second to save her before she was just gone. I seriously thought he was going to chicken out and leave her behind, but he actually turns back to fight. So yeah, some time passes. Our guy and Big Idiot walk into the room. The couple is still in the middle of getting devoured by the red demon. Our dude sees that and is like, for the weak, cashing out in the apocalypse is basically freedom. Like they just suffer anyway. At least their screaming helps him track down this monster. The system pings him saying this thing is a zombie that get this class change just like a person. And of course, bosses level up their class way faster than your average zombie. Apparently, this dude used to be some admin who had a rough time at the library. So after turning, his whole mission became offing anyone who reads books. Guess our boy has to figure out its fighting style. So our guy sends in Big Idiot first. Big Idiot lumbers over and goes for a huge overhead smash, but right before it connects, the creature just vanishes. It literally turns into a shadow and pops back up. On the other side of the room, right behind him, it lunges for his blind spot, aiming for the neck. But Lindsay uses the distraction to his advantage, slashing at the creature's hand. He creeps up from the back and is all like, this is way too easy. But dude, as he swings, the monster sprouts 2 extra arms and blocks him cold. So our guy powers up his own slash and lops off both new arms. The little monster. He yeets his boomerang sword. The moment it hits, he triggers the explosive slash, and bam, the creature is toast. He scores a bunch of XP and a bronze-ranked piece of gear. The only issue, though, is that he's hard stuck at level 10 until he can class change. And as if being OP wasn't enough, the system gives him a brand new cheat just for hitting level 10. He's wondering what it could be, and the system instantly flashes the yin-yang talent, which lets him have 2 classes at once. It congratulates him, and he just grins, thinking with this, he could probably totally own the entire world. Even he knows this cheat is super unfair to everyone else. He hears more zombies shuffling closer and without even opening his eyes, whips out his spear. He's aiming for Shadow Phantom Jacks up his strength and agility, so a second class that boosts his physical and mental stats would be perfect. The only catch is he knows Dragon City doesn't have any of those so-called super classes. He checks out the loot he got and tosses Big Idiot a green hammer. Then he cracks open the silver staff and gets a pair of war pants. They cut down negative effects by 20%, so he puts them on right away. He tells his zombie to go collect the bodies of the things his spear took out because he's got bigger fish to fry. Then it hits him that the beginner period isn't over yet, so class changes are still locked. He figures it's time to go check on the crew in the auditorium. Outside, a whole mob of zombies is piled up at the door. Looks like the artist ran out of supplies and started giving the guys makeovers, probably starting with Gung. Our dude asks if they can actually storm the museum. Gung says that if our guy rolls with their 200 members, it's totally doable. He's hyped knowing if this actually works, nobody will even try to challenge him for the president spot. Then Gung gives this big dramatic speech, yelling at all the players, announcing that today's the day for a massive battle. The whole group is going to mobilize and clear out every last zombie in the museum. Everyone was stoked to get new gear. Stuff. They all look out again at the insane horde of zombies swarming the museum entrance. Gung asks our guy if he's 100% sure this plan is going to work. Our dude's like, yeah, if everyone hauls it, nobody will get hurt or worse. He puts a hand on Gung's shoulder and tells him to grab this chance, because opportunities like this don't come around often. Gung says he gets it and promises he'll give it his all. The group gives the signal that they're ready to go. Our guy tells everyone he's the fastest, so he'll pull the first wave of zombies. He's leaving Big Idiot behind to help Gung, who's grateful. Now it's go time to get this plan rolling and finally snag that class change. He bolts, and the group wishes him luck. As he's sprinting, he's carrying some zombie meat, which is basically a magnet for all the other zombies. The group uses the opening to sneak by without being seen. He passes the meat to another dude, telling him to keep running while he takes care of the monsters. This was a huge mission, and the payoff was going to be sweet. The poor dude is so touched he's about to cry. Obviously, Lin can't be wasting time playing bait. He needs to level up, so he just plows forward, mowing down a ton of the creatures. After a bit, he gets to a certain room. He knew this was the spot where the class change scroll was stashed. In his past life, tons of people died trying to get this thing, but this time, it's all his. He throws a punch at the glass, but nothing, so he goes full-on JoJo style, throwing a crazy fast combo of punches, and it finally starts to crack. After burning a ton of energy, the glass shatters, and inside he finds a wild scroll and cashes in 500 prestige points. Then the system's like, you gonna accept this summon or what? He's all in, slaps his hand on it, and bam, he's teleported. He wakes up in a totally different spot surrounded by fire. He walks up to a wall, slips through a portal, and just like that, the class change quest is a go. He's got to beat 3 challenges, and in this zone, all his powers are completely shut down. Time's all wonky here, and dying means you're just like erased from existence. But of course, he's got a cheat code and boots up the Trial of the Ancient Ancestors. So now, not only will he score a new class, but he'll also get a new hack and the usual little treasure chest. Apparently, he was also offered a totally different class from like thousands of years back. He knows the Phantom Assassin, so he just accepts the mission. And with that, the first trial kicks off. The system tells him to place his hand on this orb. The second he touched it, the energy inside went nuts, and this sick red aura started to glow. All of a sudden, he felt this crazy energy just take over his body. The next moment, he opens his eyes and finds himself in the absolute middle of nowhere. He crouches and touches the liquid, which turns out to be a literal sea of blood. He starts walking through it until a massive tornado forms right above him. In his past life, this test took him forever, and he only made it out alive because boomed from above saying that was enough, and he could head back. When he's back in the cave, the system tells him it's time for the second test. Portal for trial number 2 appears. He steps through and starts walking in what looks like deep space. As he's walking, a voice keeps telling him to just give up, saying the second he passes out, he'll get to the third phase. His body felt the insane pressures of the place. The farther he walked, the more epic his new class and stats would be. Remembering everything he'd been through in his past life and the people he'd faced, he knew to the very end. For the first time, this kid was actually crying, just so emotional that he finally did something huge. He got a congrats for passing the second test, and now it was time for the final round. Of course, the final test was the hardest, but without even thinking, he jumped into the portal and landed in a cave. The system let him know he had to defeat the Guardian. He pulled out the sword he'd gotten earlier and just waited. Pretty soon, the air in the corner of the cave started to get all wavy, and out of it pops a tiny black kitten. My guy thought he was about to face some mega boss, but it was just a little kitty. He looked so disappointed, saying he waited all this time for something like this asterisk to show up. In the past, this thing gave him a ton of trouble, and he suffered big time, but he was ready for it, and with one clean slash, he nailed the kitten. He was basically returning the favor for the nasty cut that little demon gave him in his past life. Or wait, did he get that scar from another creature? Man, am I going. Still in the room. He wasn't sure if this was like a bonus level, or if he was just stuck because of his hack. He started looking around, wondering if the system glitched. That's when he realized he hadn't actually gotten the scroll's true power yet. He decided to just start the activation to see if anything else would happen. He asked the system where he was going next, but got nothing back. His finger, a golden light started to glow. Suddenly, a picture of an ox and a phoenix appeared, the exact same symbols from the scroll. The image burned itself onto the wall, and the ground started to shake. The weird image then turned into a small door. He went over and opened it. In the room behind it, there was an orb and another scroll. He walked over and opened the scroll, and it had the name Shu on it. The scroll seemed to be the final test from some emperor who got offed a long time ago. He read that he had to put his hand on the painting. As soon as he touched it, the system pinged him that an unknown bloodline had been discovered. After scanning the energy, it started to switch his profession. The system then announced that the test was over and that he would receive the profession of Soldier Lord. He was so hyped because he'd get to keep his old talent while also getting a new one. He picked up the orb on the table, and it started to literally fuse with his hand. The system notified him that the item could change its form and absorb the energy of other gear to get even stronger. He was totally blown away by something that could level up with basically no limits. The orb then jumped to his forehead. After a killer headache, he finally woke up and was like, "Okay, I gotta finish this test. I've been in this cave way too long." When he finally got out, he saw a literal mountain of dead zombies all around him. He spotted the scroll right in front of him, and the system pinged him that he was officially getting the Soldier Lord class. With this new setup, instead of just one lame attribute point, he was now getting a sick 3 strength, 3 physical, and 3 other attributes. He knew with stats like these, he could just casually walk through a whole zombie horde. For being the first person to ever lock in a class, he got the Pioneers achievement. He checked out the class, which was pretty standard, except for this one super mysterious third skill. He grabbed his staff and decided it was time to see what this new orb could really do. He tossed an item at the orb and told it to devour it. The orb started glowing and the item just vanished. Since it absorbed something with a ton of energy, the orb evolved to silver rank. He then started special abilities just for that form. Then he tells the orb to turn into a bow. Instantly, it just dissolved and reformed. His stats changed right along with his abilities. He started just having fun transforming it into all kinds of weapons to see the insane magic it packed. Eventually, his mental energy totally bottomed out, and he couldn't change its form anymore. He figured it was time to crash. Players hadn't even hit level 7 yet. Lindsay then pops some energy recovery items and chugs a potion. The Pioneer title hooked him up with 1,000 prestige points, some coins, and a bunch of extra attributes. It also nerfed the stats of any opponent he faced by 5%. Feeling pretty wiped, he told the system to open the silver-ranked equipment box. Inside, he got a wicked mask of the evil phantom, which hides his info from any player who isn't at least 5 levels above him. It also had this evil gaze ability, which could literally paralyze someone with fear for 3 seconds. He threw on the mask and activated its phantom effect. Now all that was left was checking out the sweet hack he was going to get. Since he had his first class and was past level 11, he could wear another ring. Bummer was, he'd already fused all his rings, so he needed to score another one. For now, he had 2 extra attribute points to burn, which he used right away. The night passed, and he headed out for another hunt the next day. Outside, everyone was partying, having finally cleared the museum. Godong, rolling with Big Idiot, stepped up to make a speech. He congratulated everyone, said the mission was a huge win, and then introduced the guy who made the biggest splash, Big Idiot, all decked out in our boys' gear. Just then, Lindsay rolls up wearing his demonic mask. Godong was like, "Dude, good to see you. I was worried something happened." Drop more than 100. Later, Godong calls Lindsay over to the warehouse and shows him a massive pile of loot boxes, saying it was all from the mission. He thanked Lindsay again and asked if they could chat more later, reminding him that the more people you have, the more power you get. With the numbers they had, he could do whatever he wanted. Lindsay thought about it, figuring that if he got a squad together, they could totally score more gear and speed run their way to diamond rank. Not to mention he was so stacked on supplies that sharing food was a total non-issue. Plus, he could sell what he didn't need to the others for coins. So he tells Godong they should talk about a trade. But Godong just puts a hand on his shoulder, saying Lindsay was the key to their win and could ask for anything he wanted. Our boy didn't hold back and just said he wanted equipment. Godong, who totally saw that coming, was like, "I get it, that stuff is hard to find." He tells Lindsay to the end of the beginner period, but really his plan was to trap them all in the warehouse so they couldn't escape when the time ran out, making sure they all got wrecked. This was his twisted way of thanking them for being so nice and giving him the ring. But Godong just assured him they weren't beginners anymore, so they wouldn't die. Godong thanked him again and promised to tell everyone asking how they should handle the trades. Lindsay just told him that when the time comes, he'd explain everything, deciding not to push it, since they weren't really listening to him anyway. With that, he bounced. Godong mentioned they wouldn't need any resources later, but Lindsay knew something bad was about to happen. Later, Lindsay was in his room just playing with the orb and making all kinds of items. After feeding it all the gear he had, the orb finally hit gold rank. He was shocked because he thought he wouldn't get anything this good until around level 30. Plus, the gold-ranked item had double the stats and caused bleeding damage. He went to the window where a whole horde of zombies was gathering and said they showed up right on time. He yeeted his dagger, which, like poofs into thin air, just slicing through everything in its path. He yells for Big Idiot, telling him it's go time. That crazy magic kept going, taking out tons of zombies until there was literally a mountain of them. And then bam, Lindsay just hits level 15 out of nowhere. He was totally milking the last of the newbie phase, but time was up. He tells Big Idiot they gotta bounce. The weird thing is, even though they wrecked a crazy number of zombies, the horde looked just as huge. He makes a break for a hotel and slams the doors shut. Finally, 7 o'clock hits the sky, goes all blood red, which basically screamed, newbie time is over. And with that, the real apocalypse game was on. Before it was like a fair tutorial level, but now this was the main event. The zombies got major stat boosts, their senses got super sharp, and they started leveling up way faster. On top of that, a bunch of zombies now had classes and powers, just like us players. They'd actually get organized and launch these massive raids on player bases. And at night, the zombies' stats would get even more juiced, while ours would totally tank. Everything got tougher to break, and the only food left was game stuff, because all the normal food in the world started to rot. The weather was going to get wild, but at least zombies started dropping way better loot. They also rolled out new jobs, a whole national leaderboard in dungeons. Lastly, they said new updates would drop once we hit certain goals. This time around was already tough, but in his past life, it was straight up impossible. He gets this message basically saying, good luck, don't die. He peeks outside, and the creatures were already starting to mutate. The world was officially a do-or-die game now. The water was toxic, and food rotted instantly. Everyone had to hunt to survive. The only way to get his power in the whole mutation thing. Like, he wouldn't look any different, but he'd get a massive 50% stat boost, and could maybe even switch up his class. Our boy was already so hyped, thinking about giving his zombie some legendary tier class. Big Idiot scored a legendary power talent, which juiced up how many stats he got. Meanwhile, our guy's screen started blowing up with a ton of congrats messages for hitting all these different ranks. The system asked if he wanted to flex on everyone or keep his name on the down low. Being a total show-off, our boy chose to blast it to the whole world. When he checked the leaderboard, he saw Big Idiot was ranked number 3. The catch with being on the ranks was that all your info, like all your gear, was out there for everyone to see. He started thinking if putting himself on blast like that was a smart move. Back in the day, it would have been a huge deal since the Leaf family was after him, but since they're toast now, he figured he wouldn't bother hiding. Plus, he had the mask, so nobody would know he was actually Guy. And on top of that, his number 1 spot came with a ton of extra rewards, which would be clutch for building a base with a whole crew. For being top dog in level rep and gear, he got the title unmatched in the world. The only way to keep this sick title was to stay at the very top of everything. If he slipped in even one spot, poof, the title was gone. With it, he got an extra 10% to all his stats and a 10% discount at the shops. He was stoked, because with so many bonus stats, holding on to his top spot would be a breeze. It also boosted his item drop rate by 1%. But since he already had a 100% drop rate, he was kinda confused. The system tells him it's time to test out all their new stuff. But the second he cracks open the door, a zombie just lunges at him. He goes to slice it, but the zombie backs off, reaching out its hand. He uses his heart to take out the first baddie. He almost got because that zombie had the stealth talent. As he's walking through the city, he spots a whole crew of zombies just flinging poison everywhere. He hated dealing with these kinds of enemies and told Big Idiot to book it. Those zombies weren't tough, but getting close enough to actually finish them would be a total pain. He sees something and tells Big Idiot to follow him. He ducks into a house, slams the door, and traps a zombie in the doorway. Then he just hops out a window and dips. Meanwhile, back at the base, everyone was getting wrecked. Our boy walked in and found everyone looking totally defeated, wondering why they even bothered trying so hard just to go out in such a lame way. They were almost out of supplies and knew they were goners. Some girls suggested that everyone should just eat whatever was left since it was pretty much the end anyway. But for Lindsay, this was the exact moment he'd been waiting for. He strolls in and announces that he's there to help them all survive and find some hope. He offered to sell food gear and whatever else they needed for a super cheap price. Right away, everyone who couldn't fight zombies swarmed him, desperate for supplies. Our guy started making deals, raking in over 10,000 coins. Everyone who bought stuff from him left feeling stoked, knowing it was their only shot at making it. Lindsay said he was going to crash for the night and warned everyone not to make any noise or Big Idiot would totally end them. Godong, rocking some new hair dye, was just chilling in the shadows, watching everything go down. Finally, Lindsay showed up and asked how things were going. Godong said that for Ma, Lindsay was the only one who could get this whole place in check, like everyone just listened to him. He leaned in and dropped some secret info in Godong's ear. Godong just nodded like, got it, I'm on it. With these new freaky zombies on the scene, he knew he could score way better gear and loot. Plus, his master plan was to get the whole base squad to help him grind. Next thing you know, he and the big idiot are already outside, and in a flash, a whole horde of zombies swarmed them. But like a second later, they're all just dropped on the ground, totally wrecked. Our boy announced they were clearing the whole area so the other players could finally step outside. For a change, he totally wiped out all the zombies from this one building with a shop inside. It was the perfect spot about the shop because then no one would even think about raiding it. But when he swung the door open, there was this bald dude. Another guy steps up all like, who are you? Saying his crew already called dibs. But the bald dude shushed him because Big Idiot was literally right there. He whispered that the guy in the back was the number 2 player in all of China, so they better chill. Even Lindsay had no clue they'd climbed the ranks again and hit second place. The guys immediately switched up, putting their arms out like, welcome bro, do whatever you want here. Big Idiot was ready to throw down, but Lindsay's cooler head told him to just relax since they were literally just there to shop. With that, they strolled into the store, and the other crew didn't say another word. The bald guy muttered that the two of them seemed tough, but their squad had way more people and they could probably take them. But the captain was like, dude, that's a dumb idea. He said Lindsay has probably offed more zombies than they have guys in their crew, so it was totally not worth the risk. Inside, our boy was eyeing the city's Medal of Honor. The second he got his hands on it, he had this huge grin. And yeah, you remember last chapter ended right when Lindsay was about to snag the city's honor mark. He knew he had to lock that thing down before anyone else did. He snagged it, dropping 9,000 gold coins and still having 7,300 left over. The moment it hit his inventory, he fired it up instantly. The first perk of the mark let him buff up gear that was about to break. The second one, it nerfed anyone who tried to fight him in the city of Mu. And get this, as long as he was in the city of Mu, he could also summon a robot clone with his exact stats, but it only lasted for 10 minutes. The system gave a warning that it was a one-of-a-kind item you could only buy once. Of course, sneaky Lindsay was already scheming about buying 10 marks to summon a whole army of himself. But then again, the item description said the attributes were based on his, but it was super vague about the exact ratio. So, whatever he bounced from the area and headed out of the city. In this wide open space, there was some weird tube thing with drawings of swords and weapons all over it. Suddenly, this ball of blue light just pops up. Some dude on a wall was like, the zombies should be gone by now. We're all good. Then a blonde guy points at the glowing ball and says, that's where. They announced the job change stuff. His friends were like, maybe we should just look for weapons and supplies for now. But like a total cliche side character, she just walks up and touches the orb having no clue what it is. Her red-haired friend yelled not to touch it, but it was way too late. She was already getting swallowed by this dark aura as a blue light started shooting up. Everyone huddled around the girl in purple, and it looked like they were all inside a force field. The whole place filled with smoke, and the blonde guy was freaking out like, why do you always pull stunts like this? The girl, already looking messed up, just said she had no idea and was sorry. But like, girl, you probably just got your whole squad wiped. One of them randomly pulls out a flashlight and says, they need to stop fighting and find an exit, but the blonde dude just tells him to look behind him. And yup, a giant zombie was already mid-swing with a freaking hammer. It was a level 18 bronze rank boss, and they couldn't even read its power level. One look at the bloody hand, and you knew that guy was toast. Now, everyone's just standing there completely shook. The monster just grins, rushes forward, and pretty soon, all that was left on the ground were some arms. Yikes! The creature stomps up to the barrier and smacks it, but nothing happens. It lets out this super frustrated roar, and then finally it looked like the test was done, and the barrier just vanished. The smoke cleared and the monster was free to just wander around the city. Right then, someone nearby was like, see, this is what happens when you're reckless. He turned to the two people behind him and said, this is exactly why you don't talk to strangers or touch random stuff. Meanwhile, in the background, someone was rolling up with their big idiot. The three of them took off and then spotted our boy just strolling by. Totally chill, wearing his mask and looking even more beastly than his actual beast. The dude in the black jacket was like, great, 2 more morons here to get themselves wrecked. But the one in green said he heard this guy was ranked number 2 in China. The girl was like, you think he can actually take out that zombie? And one guy said it was possible. But the other dude was still skeptical, saying the people who already died were total pros, so even if this guy lands a hit, there's no way he could actually finish it off. His friend stated the obvious like, let's just hang back, and if he bites it, we can snag his loot. But then they heard a scream. Lindsay just told his monster there were 3 clowns over there, but they weren't even worth their time. He walked over to the hole where the orb used to be, knowing that the boss, the big bad of this place, was a total berserker type. The system pinged, saying the prize was a scroll to switch to the Berserker class, and get this, a barrier would pop up when the fight kicked off. But here's the catch. The more people who jumped in to fight the boss, the beefier it got, but the loot was way better. Our dude remembered this one city where so many players got wiped by the boss that it leveled all the way up to level 40. So he walked up to the crystal, saw this gnarly pool of blood, and scooped up some stuff off the ground. While he was looting the gear from the fallen players, he just casually tapped the crystal bubble. Meanwhile, the other dude was just chilling, watching the whole danger zone from a distance. Then the system blasted a notification. Our boy touched the orb and force started the job change quest in the city of Mu. Wait, actually, I messed that up. It's the asterisk. Fewer asterisk people in the challenge, the better the rewards. And since it was just him and one other guy, this was about to be one of the sickest loot drops ever. The system, being its usual sneaky self, saw a mission pop off nearby and decided to throw him a bone. The reward screen appeared, and the grand prize was a super high rank class, but it was totally random. Lindsay told his big golem he'd snag the mage class, and the other guy could have the warrior one. Dude, I didn't even realize that thing was so massive. The bronze rank monster had already hit level 19 after taking out those 3 clowns. Our boy was like, props to you, saying it totally earned that Titan title. I mean, it made sense, they were just goofing off like fools. And our guy was positive that with the boss's setup, this was going to be a cakewalk. The second the mission went live, he started knocking an arrow while the boss was drooling to snack on our boy's power. He let the first shot fly, and the creature crossed its arms to block. Right then, our dude yelled at his golem, who leaped in with a massive hammer, ready to swing. But even with that, the boss blocked it again. But the golem's landing made a shockwave, and our boy nailed it with a freezing arrow. He was totally hyping up his own aim while the boss was freaking out like, "Why is my arm an icicle?" All of a sudden, the monster let out this huge roar, and Lindsay was frozen solid. It was a Titan skill that paralyzed him for a few seconds. He yelled at his golem to stop the creature, and it managed to block another attack. After that, the boss grabbed its own arm, ripped out the arrow, and roared again. Bro, this boss was so fast, it had already swung a hammer before I even saw it pick one up. Our boy barely dodged and lit up his bow with a fire and ice skill, shooting one of each element that tagged the monster's leg arm and back. A nearly perfect headshot left the monster's dome looking like a burnt bowling ball, which is legit every dude's worst nightmare. Our guy figured the creature must have been a construction worker before it kicked the bucket, and now it was back to messing with cement. But turning your back on a baddie is a rookie move, so he knew he had to finish this. He fired another arrow, but the monster threw up a shield out of nowhere. Lindsay was like, "No way that jerk just pulled that out of thin air." Yo, the new artist was in the house, Golem 2.0, and who knew he could draw like that? Our boy told his monster to go all in with the Berserker skill, and the second it kicked in, it launched itself at the boss. The punch looked like it connected perfectly, shattering the shield, but now they were locked in a grapple while our boy tried to get a clear shot. He let an arrow fly, aiming for its back, but from the way it screamed in pain, you could totally tell where it really hit. The monster slammed the golem into the dirt, yanked out the arrow, and turned to our boy, just roaring its head off. Guess it was trying to say it got hit where the sun don't shine, huh? Too bad it couldn't talk. Before our guy could even say "my bad," the boss was right in his face, about to throw a haymaker, but the big golem hopped on its back and got it in a headlock. He slammed it to the ground, full-on MMA style, but the monster grabbed its arm and reversed the position. Lindsay let another arrow fly and nailed the asterisk, exact same spot asterisk as before. Oof, even he could feel that one. He basically told the boss, "You're not going to believe me if I say that was an accident twice. Are you the monster?" Yanked out the second arrow, but at this point it was just crawling on the ground, totally wrecked. Our boy told his golem to get clear, and then unleashed a whole volley of arrows right at it. The creature tried to dodge, but every single shot was a direct hit. Smoke was billowing from the explosion, and our guy was thinking, "Did I get him?" But then a system alert popped up saying that because of his super cheap fighting style, the boss had hit max level Berserker mode. This literally evolved it straight into a silver rank monster. Lindsay knew all about last minute power-ups, he just didn't think it would jump a whole rank like that. On top of that, all its stats and skills got a major buff. Every single one of its abilities was way more powerful than before. The system announced that since the mission just got a whole lot harder, the rewards were going to be way better too. The boss then got ready to charge Lindsay, who knew it was time to go all out. He dodged again by jumping back and fired off another round of arrows. One hit its arm, but the second it landed, the creature's instant regen kicked in. So he switched to his sword and went for the head. But the monster dodged, and the blade hit its chest instead, which at least did some real damage. The problem was, his big golem was totally gassed and needed to recharge, but our guy had more tricks up his sleeve, so he summoned the robot from the city of Mu, which would stick around for 10 minutes. He also brought out the zombie cat and activated a deep cutting skill. Powering up his sword, he rushed the boss. One hit sent the thing stumbling back, but plot twist, the skill locked him in place for like 2 seconds, and the monster went crashing down to the ground, and the robot moved in. It slammed a knee right into its jaw. The little cat was already there too, going wild with a storm of scratches and claw attacks. The boss tried to squirm away from being pinned, but our dude was back on his feet and landed another clean slice on its arm. The only catch, controlling these new summons with his mind was totally draining him. The boss then just punched the ground, setting off a massive shockwave. Lindsay leaped out of the way, but get this, the big guy was changing colors. Dude, I swear, the artists for this thing have all kinds of memory issues. But right as he was getting up, the shockwave slammed into him. Lindsay finally hit the ground, but he was shook that the boss busted out Titan's Fury right then and there, and the description said that the more it used that punch, the more OP it would get. Things were about to get real bad real fast. But at least one of its arms was totally wrecked, so he actually had a shot. So he charged the boss again, and it came at him with this insane One-Punch Man style hit. Bro, the impact sent our boy flying. I think he somehow managed to dodge it though. The second he hit the ground, he was face to face with another arm and landed a 6 slash right on the monster's neck. The creature was roaring in pain, and the system pinged him, saying it detected him fighting with more than one person, which meant his reward was getting nerfed. He just ignored that and went after the boss again, knowing he couldn't give it a second to heal. After a whole bunch of hits, the creature finally looked like it was about to go down. But right as our boy was about to make his move, a bunch of players started trying to crash the party and enter the arena. He shouted to everyone that they could just snag the rewards without even doing anything, which was wild. Everyone was hyped to see what class they'd get. This one girl tried to warn them like, yo, that guy just soloed the boss, you should be scared of him instead. But their leader told her to zip it, saying once he got his new class, he was going to play with her. Oh, when a dude says something that creepy, you just know he's about to get wrecked. And guess who popped up behind them? Our boy was radiating this intense aura, and the guys spun around all like, congrats, my dude. The leader claimed he watched the whole fight and tried to jump in to help, but he didn't expect to show up right at the end. Others started chiming in saying they were fans, but our boy just cut them off like, what is this garbage? Weren't you guys just hiding up there waiting for the perfect moment to swoop in right when I was about to finish the boss? The second the leader realized he was caught, he totally panicked, tried to make excuses, but it was too late. He was already history. Our boy just called them what they were, a bunch of fakes. He flicked the gunk off his sword and said that people like them were the absolute worst. With a single look back, our boy activated Demon's Gaze. Instantly, the dude in the green hood got hit by it, turned, and just started wailing on his own friend, kicking off a huge fight. Bodies started dropping, and the rewards just kept climbing as the player count went down. One of them yelled at our boy, saying he was supposed to be the hero here. And the one in yellow was all like, as a hero, you should be helping. Everyone level up, not just trying to survive on your own. You need to get that if you wipe us all out here. But before he could even finish, our boy had already zeroed another player. It said the guy who was talking immediately slapped a hand over his mouth, realizing that saying too much meant he was next on the list. Our pro tag told them to bounce and spread the word, let everyone know what goes down. To anyone who tries to poach his loot, the guys were totally shaking terrified as he just casually made a "you're next" gesture. A little while later, there was a whole pile of them. Standing over the boss, our boy thought they were idiots for trying to pull the morality card on him. Like maybe when the Leaf family was hunting him, they should have used all that righteousness to help him out instead of just letting him suffer for so long. And with that, the boss was finally done for, and he got his loot. Since the difficulty jumped to silver rank, his rewards got doubled too. The first chest popped up, and of course he went right for it. Inside, there was a scroll and a feather. The scroll said that since he activated the class change station, a statue of him would be put up. Anyone in this city who wanted to change their class would have to go to that statue and pay some gold, and he'd get a piece of the action, so obviously he slapped his name on it. Without even thinking twice, Ariana's quest was complete, scoring him even more loot, and then the orb that was just sitting there started to glow. The items that were stuck in the stone were now free. The players knew some sick loot was coming, because the system always juices the rewards at times like this. The only problem was it looked like a whole crowd was behind him, and he was not in the mood to deal with them. He bopped the big dummy on the face a couple of times and told them to scram like now. They took off, and somewhere else in the city, a blue light shot up as people wondered if our boy actually managed to beat the boss. Those sore losers were still whining, saying that every single time Lindsay hogs everything for himself, when all they wanted was to snag a piece of the reward without lifting a finger, of course. Total moochers. Just then, a server-wide announcement went out about our guy's epic win and the activation of the class change system in the city of Mu. And since it was the first city to get the system online for the next 24 hours, everyone's drop rates were literally doubled. Plus, they got bonus XP and gold. Everybody in the whole city got a free level up, and they were all freaking out, totally celebrating. The girls obviously were instantly all over our boy. Meanwhile, the other dudes were just losing it. So savage. From way off. In the distance, some dude was like, yo, we tried to take on that boss with 30 people yesterday, and we all got wiped. This guy was just standing there rocking a headband with our boy's name on it, with 2 bodies on the ground and his arms spread wide, yelling about how he was the one true savior. Then in some random room, another guy mentioned that G was actually from their city, but he bounced when everything went down. He took off to the city of Mu, but since this was his hometown, he'd probably come back eventually. Somewhere else in town, the big dude was just vibing. Meanwhile, our boy was just scrolling through his insane list of loot. He was already level 16 with a crazy 12,000 gold coins. Feeling himself, he mumbled that he was trying to stay low-key, but that was basically impossible now. One of the class change scrolls was for Overlord, a class where every single point he put into strength would give him 4 points back. For him, this was a total game changer for saving points, and lets him invest everything else into agility since his strength would always be jacked. On top of that, his auto loot skill leveled up to rank 2. He was thinking that was a major W, because it basically guaranteed he wouldn't miss a single drop when mobbing. Then he was like, wait, what about that double drop event? Do I still get that? At least 1%, because the system said 1% was the base rate. But nope, it wasn't just double the base chance, he was getting a full 200%. With that, the gear he scored was a chest plate and some pants. Both pieces were clutch for fighting against anyone who spanned magic, because they had this stealth attribute. Like, you put them on and they're totally invisible. Dope, his stats were still looking good, and now it was time to cash in on those freebies the system gives out. It was just a small potion to buff his physique, which was whatever to him, getting a little full of himself. After a sec, he got on his knees, saying now was the real moment of truth, opening the boss loot. He started chanting Amitabha, just praying for something good. He pulled out a class scroll that gave extra strength, a little physique, and some stat points to spend. The only problem was, it was kinda useless for him and the big dude right now, so he just stashed it, away for later. Then he popped open one of the last chests. Inside was a watermelon slicing knife that boosted his agility, but to get the buff, he had to literally yell, "Who wants fresh watermelon?" Yeah, no, that was way too cringe, so he decided to just feed it to another weapon for XP. Anyway, it was time to get back to the grind. I mean, with 24 hours of double loot, he had to go hard. He chugged a recovery potion, called the big dude over, and told him they were in for a long day. To keep him hyped, he promised a huge roast chicken for every 20 minutes they spent farming mobs. That was all it took. The two of them were totally pumped and headed out. Our boy landed right in front of a zombie, looked back, and saw this massive fat one with a super saggy belly. Before the thing could even move, he slashed it, basically yelling for it to cough up its double loot. Then he told the big dude to smash the ground with his hammer and make a ton of noise to pull every monster in the city. While his buddy was aggroing everything, our boy was just mowing them all down. A few seconds later, he looked around and was completely swarmed by the horde. This was exactly the plan. Meanwhile, in some other room, a bunch of people were checking the gear leaderboards and noticed that the top 6 best items all belonged to him, the leaders of the Young and Yin families. They were all wondering who this dude really was. The guy on the left told the younger one to shut it. I mean, he was only there because his dad kicked the bucket, but the silver-haired guy shot back, asking if he seriously thought his own kids were any better. Besides, he knew their boss was in the city of Mu, so it was probably a bad idea to mess with this new guy. The old dude with glasses told them to get back on track and focus on the real problem, figuring out who Guy actually was. One of them pointed out that they needed to find out what he looked like and his real name before they could figure out how to handle him. The silver-haired guy just said they should totally use the apocalypse to their advantage. The world was already a mess, so why not just take over and become the new kings? If Guy wasn't on their side, they'd just take him out and jack his gear. The whole room went dead silent, with everyone just looking at each other. Then the scene cut back to the streets, where for the first time I actually saw a girl who didn't look like she was starving. I swear everyone out grinding had a huge smile on their face, totally stoked about the double loot and bonus XP. The whole city had this vibe, like they were going to pull an all-nighter. Meanwhile, back at his hotel, our boy was sorting through his gear. He glanced outside, watching the brawls pop off. And guess who he spots? A dude named Zhang Yan. In his old life, that guy was ranked number 2, but now he was seriously struggling. Plus, he was the guy who basically triggered the statue announcement and then shot up the levels. Yeah, that opportunity was long gone. Our boy started realizing that his moves were completely changing the game for a bajillion people. But TBH, he couldn't care less as long as he was leveling up and could clap back at his enemies. He reached into his backpack, pulled out a ton of loot, and started feeding it to his sword to keep leveling it up. Then he smelled something nasty and wondered if his buddy had let one rip. But the big dude just pointed at himself, and that's when our guy realized that since this whole thing started, he hadn't showered at all. So he bolted for the bathroom, and a little later he was feeling way fresher. He chucked a towel at the big guy's face and was like, "All right, time to crash." Totally wiped from the crazy day, he was out like a light. The moon was blood red as they chilled in the room, and down in the toilet something started to crawl out. First an eye popped up, then a freaking huge rat pulled itself out. Our dude snapped away just in time and saw the rat just staring him down. The thing launched itself at him instantly, but he stayed chill, just wondering what a mutant was doing in his room. The gnarly thing got sliced clean in two, but it totally wrecked his bed. Then he started hearing this sound like a million rats skittering through the city. Outside, the streets were just blanketed in a creepy fog of mutant rats. If one even nipped another, it got eaten on the spot. Our guy and the big dude stood at the door trying to process what was even happening. The system hadn't pinged them with any events or missions. So why were all these things swarming? Maybe it was some kind of side effect from all his grinding, but it was super weird. Looking out the window, he saw there weren't that many zombie rats yet, so maybe he was just freaking out. He was like, should I just go back to bed? But then he remembered the noise was what woke him up in the first place. Something bigger had to be going down. Peeking outside, he saw a whole swarm of rats pouring out of the sewer. They were moving like a legit army, as if some kind of boss was giving them orders. He turned to the big guy and was like, we gotta get a bird's eye view of this. Up on the roof of the building, he went to the edge to check out the street. There were rats of all sizes, even some that looked way more evolved, like serious mutants. And of course, our dude was already calculating all the loot he could score by wiping them out. The only problem, there were way too many for one person to handle. He had to play it smart this time around. He told the big dude to stay put, popped on the ring of Mega Fall, and started parkouring across the rooftops. He kept an eye on the rats, movements trying to get a read on the situation. That's when he spotted a huge chunk of them heading for one specific house. He knew you couldn't just sit back and do nothing in this apocalypse and expect to survive, but he decided to check it out anyway. A little while went by. He was just watching, but nothing was happening. It seemed like the rats went inside and just vanished, which made him wonder if there was like a dungeon in there. Usually dungeons weren't supposed to pop up this early, but maybe all his actions had messed with the game's timeline. Obviously, he had to be the first one to check it out. Else, he whistled for the big dude, and as soon as his buddy showed up, they were good to go. Right then, a whole murder of crows flew over them. They both dove for cover on the roof, and our guy yelled to be careful. Something was totally controlling all the animals. That creepy rat fog was back, and now the birds were in on it too. Now he was more hyped than ever to see what was inside. That mansion. They scrambled down the building and watched the house from across the street. Finally, the fog started to clear up a bit. This was their shot. Or maybe not, because now, even the zoo animals were showing up. All the freaky creatures just poured through the door. And again, our guy realized he'd just have to wait. Inside the mansion, you could see this golden portal, and all the creatures were just marching right into it. More and more animals kept rolling up, and the sun was already coming up. Our guy was still waiting, wondering if this whole thing was finally done. He scanned the area one more time and was like, yes, it looked like it was finally over. He waved the big dude over and said it was time to figure out this mystery. As he got closer to the portal, the system pinged him with a "Congrats, you found a secret dungeon," and asked if he wanted to go in. Our guy explained that in his last life, there were like two kinds of dungeons. One was for PvP, where players battled each other, and the other was PvE, which zapped you to a place full of monsters where you could score rewards. Since he'd already run dungeons in his past life, he was pretty sure this wouldn't be too hard. He asked if there was like a safety net, and the system said if he was ever in real trouble, he could just ask to bail. With that escape plan, he fired up the dungeon right away. The only catch was that the system couldn't just kick the big dude out, so he pushed his buddy back and told him to stay put. Our guy thought it was a little weird how obedient the big dude was being, but whatever. He jumped into the dungeon and whipped out his sword. This time, he was going to have to solo this. The second he was in, he was standing in a stone room. He knocked on the walls, heard nothing sketchy, then gave them a good slash just to be sure. Once he saw there were no traps around the dungeon, kicked on. It was a maze where he had to find the exit, and it was packed with mutated animals and a ton of traps. He had a 10-year time limit, and after that, he'd get booted out. Then the dungeon system announced that because he activated it in a special way, it was getting a redesign. Our guy was kind of confused. He was positive he'd used the right teleporter. Then he stopped to think. Maybe the gate was just bait for the animals, and he'd just accidentally tagged along with them. So like he probably wasn't even supposed to be here, but since he couldn't trust the system anyway, there was no point in being scared. Even without the big dude, he still had his 9-form sword. A message popped up saying the dungeon just got a custom tune-up to match his power level. A sick red aura flared up, and our dude started hyping himself up thinking it got nerfed, but I'm pretty sure he's so OP now that it probably got buffed instead. And boom, just like that, the system hit him with a notification. You jumped the gun, so you get a 50% penalty. Ouch. He got the official quest to clear the dungeon insta-accepted and started creeping through the halls. He was moving super carefully, setting off traps and dodging them. Or maybe not so carefully, because next thing you know, he gets totally snatched. He realized the penalty for finding the dungeon early was way harsher than he thought. He couldn't even think of a single other player out there who could have tanked that. And right then, a whole storm of arrows came flying his way. He full-on sprinted at them, then yeeted himself to the side at the very last second, barely making it. That was way too close. There was no way he could have blocked that many, so he tried a new strat, waving his sword around to bait out any other traps. After a quick check confirmed it was clear, he could finally walk down the hall. Hell, he was starting to get hyped. Everything lately had been a total cakewalk, but this was a real challenge. He kept walking until he stepped on something crunchy. He looked down and saw a skeleton. He just shrugged it off, thinking it was just for decoration. I mean, he was the first one in, so it's not like someone else got clapped in here. Further, down the hall, he spotted a door with a 1 on it and gave it a knock like he was ordering a pizza. The door just creaked open by itself. Inside, a giant rat jumped him, but a low-level mob like that had zero chance. It got one-shotted, turning straight into XP. It even dropped a fried rice card, which he scarfed down right there. After refueling, it was time to get back to the grind. He was super lucky he found this dungeon right after his class change, otherwise this would have been a total nightmare. And again, it was a left or right choice. He picked right. He tapped the wall with his sword, nada. Then he hit a 4-way split and bam, an attack from behind from the exact path he just took. He popped open door 2 and wrecked a few more rats easy peasy, then hit up door 1. This time, it was a mutant rat boss, but it also turned into XP in like 2 seconds. He started using his blood to mark the walls, trying to map the place out. He was starting to figure out the pattern. One door's got regular mobs, one's got bosses, and one's a total dead end. The numbers weren't about difficulty, but how many enemies were inside. So if 1 was a single boss, then 2 would have 2 of them. But a regular 2 would just have 2 normal monsters. The mobs were leveling up, and the traps were getting way sketchier. He opened a door marked 2, and yep, his theory was right. 2 bronze rank bosses. They came at him, but they were still way too weak. More easy XP for him. He also snagged an agility fruit, which, big surprise, boosted his agility. A few days went by. On the 4th day, his sword hit 100% and evolved into a diamond rank weapon. His cutting and stunning slash skills got a major buff. All his moves were way more powerful now. Low-rank enemies were basically just free points. While he was grinding back in the city of Mu, other players were freaking out about hitting level 10. Some were wondering where that legendary god player disappeared to. One dude even thought he might have rage quit life, but the leaderboard still had him at level 17. Back in the labyrinth, our guy sliced through 3 bosses, but these ones were smarter. They were actually dodging. He had to admit it was getting tougher, but it was still doable. But then after he took out a level 9 boss, an explosion trap went off. Even with that, he scored more XP and a bronze rank chest. But when he went to grab it, he got jumped again. He was dodging, countering, and taking out more mobs, just farming and stacking up loot. He finally got the Eye of Discernment, which let him scan living things. He could now see other players' classes, titles, stats, talents, and skills. He scanned some zombies and instantly saw their weak spots. With this, he could totally pinpoint any strong enemy's weakness. He kept feeding his sword materials and clearing rooms. Then he got to a door marked 41, and it was packed with crows. Scanning them, he saw one had a busted right wing, the perfect target. But there were still 40 others to deal with. He kept on grinding until he hit a dead end. Something felt weird. This was supposed to be the way out. That's when he found a door with a golden dragon on it. Inside, there was this glowing golden sphere. The system announced Dungeon of Despair complete. His rewards got a major upgrade. He scored 2 cheat-level items, the Key of Advancement and the Water and Fire sources. Then he found a scroll about some dude named Fuxi, a hero from Chinese myths. Lindsay suddenly remembered someone who had a power tied to this legend. If he could get that same ability, it would make this whole grind totally worth it. A jade necklace just appeared on the ground. The second he touched it, elemental energy just swarmed his body. Lindsay was totally confused as he got wrapped up in a cocoon. Man, this jade necklace was seriously bad news. He felt like he was being attacked from everywhere and blood was literally leaking from his eyes. Looks like he had to go through some kind of crazy transformation. While he was in agony, constellations started forming around him. The cocoon started glowing with this blue energy, and a massive aura shot up into the sky. Inside, Lindsay was fighting to hang on. Then the thing shattered and he broke out, and right then the system detected that he'd just absorbed energy from some unknown source, like from another planet. His class changed to Green Emperor, which totally had to be connected to that Fuxi legend. The jade necklace floated over to him, glowing with the 2 elements he'd just gotten. As soon as he grabbed it, the elements started spinning around him. This gave him the power to control gaseous elements, holding one in each hand. He was totally bugging out. It was like boom, he was suddenly a mage. Just then, the entire dungeon started to crumble. The power he just absorbed was literally the juice holding the place together. A portal popped up offering a way out, and he smashed that accept button. The next thing he knew, he was back at the mansion where this whole mess started, and of course his ADHD was going wild. The first thing he did was whip out his phone to check what was up, only to get a massive shock. He'd been stuck in there for 2 whole weeks without even knowing. Turning to the side, he saw the poor big idiot was still waiting, totally starving. Lindsay was legit impressed that the beast hadn't budged from that spot the entire time. Our dude patted his shoulder and promised, "I got you, man. We're getting chicken." Checking the leaderboards, he saw he was now level 20, while the others were still chilling at level 17. he was still way ahead of the curve. He tossed a scroll to the big idiot, declaring it was time to get back on the grind. Meanwhile, outside the mansion, some player named Zhang Yuanzhang had just hit level 18. He was all hyped about finally passing that Guy dude, but when he checked the rankings, he almost had a heart attack. Guy had already hit level 20 for real. At the same time, a bunch of girls were losing their minds, screaming about how their amazing god was back. Meanwhile, some guy with silver hair was just looking super confused. Why'd the big idiot stop leveling up? The whole crew of players who did nothing but stare at the rankings were completely lost. How the heck did that kid level up so insanely fast all of a sudden? Back in the real world, Lindsay and the big idiot were seriously pigging out. His Green Emperor class was still syncing up with him. As a result, all of his stats got a +3 boost, and on top of that, he got 5 extra points to drop wherever he wanted. With his class attributes, gear stats, and bonuses, he was rocking a solid 80 points in every single stat. Plus, his class let him collect these special beads that could be used to unlock new elements. By using the 8 trigrams pendant, he could also tap into related elemental powers. For Lindsay, this was perfect. Not only did he have insane stats, but he now had 2 of the sickest classes, meaning he could fight as both a mage and a warrior. But then he noticed something was off with the big idiot. The creature was growling like crazy, like he was desperate for a fight. Lindsay tried to give him a command, but something glitched out. The stupid translator totally messed up the text, making it impossible to know what he was doing. Somehow, he managed to signal the big idiot to unleash his power. The beast slammed the ground, and a massive shockwave erupted. A second later, Lindsay looked at his own hands. Elemental energy was swirling all around him. He instantly recognized this was an effect from the Tyrant class. After a minute, he asked the system to unlock 2 cheats. He got the Beast Enslavement skill level 1, but since he already had it, it just upgraded to level 2. As they stepped out of the mansion, a server-wide message popped up telling all the Moose City players that the combat event was over. However, the first place reward went to some player named Moam, while the second place prize went to Shenyu Yobo. Lindsay realized that while he was stuck in that freaking labyrinth, these guys had been grinding hard and winning events. The system then announced that once 30% of the city hit level 10, a combat zone would be unlocked. During this time, players could sign up to compete for rewards. Lindsay decided it was time to power level again and ordered the big idiot to smash the ground. The beast obeyed, transforming with his tyrant ability. The next second, a horde of monsters flooded the streets. Man, Lindsay had been missing the thrill of wrecking these nasty things. A single slash from his upgraded sword tore through the road, slicing right through the creatures. The big idiot jumped up and just crushed them all. In a few seconds, there was a huge pile of monster bodies, and as usual, Lindsay was already checking the system for loot drops. One of the items he got was a fireball scroll. In theory, his class wasn't even supposed to control fire, but that was obviously not a thing anymore. He spread his arms and flames just erupted around his body. He condensed the fire back into his hands and noticed his control was even better than he expected. But then he totally lost control and nearly lit himself on fire. An explosion went off behind him, and he realized he was going to need way more practice than he thought. A little while later, after burning through a ton of scrolls, he finally had 2 fireballs going in his hands. He could now condense them and control them way more stably. Because he'd spammed the fireball so much, his Emperor ability actually let him learn fireball for real. Now he didn't need scrolls anymore, just his own energy. Seeing how it worked, he knew he had to track down all the other scrolls scattered around the city. He immediately called over the big idiot, telling him they had a new mission. If the event in Moose City was ending, it meant the ones in the other cities were just kicking off. Meanwhile, in Jing City at the Li family estate, some guy at a table said that being in the top 3 wasn't going to cut it. They needed to be number 1. A blonde dude in armor stood up and said that second place was doable, but first was just crazy talk. It seemed like the strongest player in their city was a guy named Zhang Yuanchong. Seriously, this story has the most Chinese names I've ever seen in my life. The Li family guy insisted, but the armored dude said there was no way. Zhang Yuanchong had a whole army, but the guy refused to quit saying that all the families had teamed up and combined their power so he couldn't win alone. They were going for first place, no matter what. Everyone in the room was all in saying they'd give it their all. And with that, the meeting was over. But as they were leaving, the big boss called up Jing Shan. He was like, "Go figure out why Rong Jin isn't on the leaderboard and handle that other thing I gave you." Jing Shan bounced, but the head of the Leaf family totally felt like something was off. The Leaf family had almost been completely wiped out, so they had to get back on top. He ducked into a room, slid a vase aside, and boom! A secret door swung open. He slipped into the hidden room, and the door slammed shut. Meanwhile, Lindsay was busy practicing his fireballs, just chilling on the edge of the city, and totally wrecking all the zombies around. Most of the mobs were around level 12 now, but his evolved sword was more than enough to crush them. Ever since he mastered his fire skills, he'd been trying to figure out how to spec his stats. He turned to the big idiot and told him they were about to kick off a new adventure. A sign pointed to another city, like a 50-minute walk away. So they headed that way and pretty soon ran face first into a giant horde of zombies. But when they tried to get in, a message popped up saying the city was still sealed. They could only get in once the seal was busted. It totally clicked. Then the key he got wasn't for opening dungeons, it was for breaking barriers. The second he used it, the system asked if he was sure, and duh, he confirmed. A hole tore open and the barrier just poofed. A rift appeared, but something felt weird. He was totally expecting to see the next city on the other side. He told the big idiot to follow him and watch his back. The moment they stepped through, they were in this super weird space with a white room just ahead. He walked in, saw it was completely empty, and thought it was kinda sus. Then the system announced that the two of them had broken the city gates rule and were getting kicked out. But Lindsay was like, if he was getting the boot anyway, he wanted to be kicked into Jin City. He knew all the big events were about to go down there, and missing out would be a complete disaster. The system then said fine, he'd be teleported into the city, but he wouldn't be allowed to leave. At least he was relieved he could still cash in on all the events. But then the look on his face totally dropped when he saw the entire city was swarming with infected. With literally no other choice, they started mowing down zombies and clearing the streets. After ages of grinding, they were totally wiped. But the XP gain was insane. Lindsay knew this was a huge city, but he had no idea the number of zombies would be this overwhelming. Then he heard a weird noise and immediately just bolted, yelling for the big idiot to keep up. They tore through the streets with another massive zombie horde right on their tails. Lindsay took a leap dove into a sewer and stuck the landing while the big idiot followed him and just completely face-planted. Lindsay sighed, saying they'd need to chill for a long time before heading back out. He figured getting dumped into a zombie pit was probably the system's idea of payback for breaking the barrier. One of the drops he got from wrecking all those monsters was a wolf fang bracelet, which had a 10% chance to scare any nearby mobs during a fight. Another was a blood spirit ring that buffed your stats the more monsters you killed. He also snagged a clawed glove with some gems in it that could deal extra damage. But the coolest thing was a small ring that gave him half a meter of extra inventory space. He already had a ton of storage, but it'd be awesome for the big idiot to have his own inventory. The two of them just chilled there for a bit, and after a while they were back out on the streets. As they were walking, some guy suddenly yelled out to the big idiot. When Lindsay turned, a dude seemed to recognize them and asked if they were here for the event too. Lindsay just gave him a nod. The guy, looking kinda awkward, asked if he could tag along and lead the way. He tried to chat with the big idiot, but Lindsay explained that if he doesn't answer, it's basically a yes. Honestly, they had totally slept through the announcement, so having a guide was actually super helpful. Then the blonde dude pulled him aside, did a whole sketchy look around, and whispered that this event was going to decide the entire future of Jing City. And then poof, the blonde guy switched his outfit and even changed his hair color. Like someone seriously needs to send these guys a memo because they are not getting it. The guide explained that after a big meeting between three families, the city's ranking system now basically decided who got a vote and a voice. Lindsay remembered from his past life that this was one of the first cities to actually get the zombies under control while other places were in total chaos. Jing City's military government and all the big shot families had teamed up to create some order. But of course, that kind of thing never comes for free. Lindsay knew history was just repeating itself. Right here, the citizens would lose all their freedom, get totally humiliated, and be used for everything, all for just a little bit of safety. Wow, talk about some heavy social commentary. Lindsay thanked the king of hair color changes for the info, and as a new friend offered to sell him some cards for 90 gold a pop. The dude looked stoked. It must have been a killer deal since they cost 100 in the shop. Selling them for 90 was basically charity, right? Okay, this kid's math was a little creative, but whatever. The guy handed over 270 gold coins and asked if he could grab 3 cards. Lindsay was cool with it, and his first sale was in the bag. When he turned around, a whole crowd had already formed. A girl said she was a huge fan and wanted to buy some stuff too, but Lindsay explained that he only made that offer to the hair dye job expert because he'd hooked him up with some valuable info. Everyone looked totally crushed, realizing they weren't getting a deal. Lindsay was so annoyed, but at the same time, he was like, ugh, fine, he'd sell to them. For 95 gold a pop. Some dude next to him was about to cry foul, but literally everyone was giving him the death stare. So Lindsay just slammed the box down and was like, 95 each, grab as many as you want. Everyone scrambled to cough up the gold while the guy was thinking, wow, Lindsay's like super nice. Yeah, apparently being nice is a low bar in this world. Meanwhile, Lindsay was totally hyped, because he needed to cop some more honor medals soon, and that was going to cost a ton of cash. After making bank on all those deals, he was just chilling with the big dude. And some blonde guy with glasses pointed out that Lindsay looked like he was trouble, but the other guy was all confident, like, nah, the dude next to me is ranked number 5 in all of China, so we're chill. Instantly, the blonde guy's eyes lit up with dollar signs, saying, if that's the legendary big dude, they could just send like 30 people to jump him and snag all his gear. The guy whipped out, get this an apple peeler, and swiped at the other dude, telling Xiao not to let him down. He wanted to see just how many clowns would follow that leopard print fool right into his trap. And yeah, if you're confused by this sudden takedown, same here. But now the guy was totally eyeing Lindsay. wondering who this rando even was that had the big dude acting like his personal bodyguard. Just then, someone came running up from behind. It was the hairstylist shouting their names. He asked if they were heading out on a hunt tonight since there were still a bunch of zombies crawling around. All of a sudden, he yanked on Lindsay's shirt, telling him they seriously needed to bail from this spot. But right then, the other guys showed up right behind them. Lindsay just stretched all bored and told them to get on with it already. Like if they were going to try and rob him, they should stop wasting his time. The hairstylist was basically hiding behind Lindsay, while Lindsay just casually counted the hostiles. He even let out a little smirk, kinda impressed they'd rolled up with 32 players who had already class changed. The guy with the glasses then warned Lindsay that he shouldn't have been doing business on their turf. Selling that many cards and resources obviously meant he was some big shot from another city, but around here, he had to pay a protection fee. Lindsay, of course, couldn't care less. The bald guy laid out the deal. If Lindsay forked over half of everything he'd made, they'd pretend this never happened. Otherwise, his super eager crew in the back would have to just take it all the hard way. But what they weren't ready for was Lindsay whipping out his sword and asking what kind of crap he was hearing about nothing happening. He'd already wasted his time, so obviously he was going to have to bill them for it. The rusty dagger he summoned dished out 200% more pain. Just then, the big dude went full-on berserker mode. He charged the front line, and the poor sucker standing there took a hammer right to the face. Weirdly enough, the guy latched onto the bald dude like a koala and just dangled there. Meanwhile, the other players swarmed Lindsay from behind. Lindsay just calmly pointed out that they really shouldn't have thrown their lives away like this. I mean, they managed to class change and everything only to pick a fight with the wrong guy. The first dude took a quick jab to the neck and was out cold instantly. Someone tried to drop in on him from above, but Lindsay just busted out his water ability, blocking all their weapons. The bald guy was totally freaking out, like, how does this kid have so many powers? And then Lindsay made the weapons just detonate, soaking everyone in the blast. The guy looked totally shook. All Lindsay wanted to know was if they really wanted to keep this fight going. But the bald dude wasn't backing down, screaming at his crew that they had to take this kid out before he completely runs this whole city. Face to face, Lindsay just sighed, thinking this was going to be pathetic. He drew his sword and slashed. A shockwave sliced through them like butter. And just like that, Lindsay was standing behind a pile of, well, you know, bits and pieces of them rained down. Okay, wait, is it just me? How did the bald guy and the redhead suddenly get white hair? Let's just say he got so scared his hair went white and he totally booked it. But he should have run faster because Lindsay yeeted his sword like a boomerang and took him out. And as far as, I remember that dude used to have a white beard, but now it's black. Okay, now I'm getting real curious how many random color swaps the artist is going to hit us with. At least our boy's hair was always white, while everyone else was literally grabbing his legs, begging him to spare them. Lindsay just smiled and said, sure, no problem. All they had to do was pay a tiny little fee, and by tiny fee, he meant dumping every single thing in their inventories right on the ground. Meanwhile, the bald dude was trying to sneak off. Lindsay just smirked and was like, yo, get back here. In less than a second, the guy was on his knees. After that, the whole squad dipped, crying their eyes out. But if you thought Lindsay was some merciful hero, you'd be dead wrong. He'd already ordered the big lug to go finish the job. The bald guy could feel something was coming, but it was too late. The ground got a fresh coat of red paint. Everyone was officially taking their forever nap. A little later, some other players showed up and saw the whole scene. Turns out they were thanking the gods that this jerk was finally gone since he'd been ripping off everyone in the city. Meanwhile, on a rooftop, some mysterious guy decked out in full tactical gear was watching the city of Jing. He pulled out a pistol, popped a shot into the air, and a firework exploded. Lindsay saw it and muttered that he'd apparently gotten on the wrong people's radar. Meanwhile, over in the safe zone of Jing City, a guy tried to get in, but a soldier stopped him for a security check first. The place was totally packed, and Lindsay was pretty impressed they'd put all this together in just 1 month. The only catch was you had to show your ID to get in. Obviously, that was a total no-go for him and the big dude, but he figured something built in just 1 month had to have some holes in its security. Shay knew it was only a matter of time before he found a way in. An hour later, at some sketchy spot with caution tape, he turned to the big guy. "Aight, this is where we're going in." They both slapped on some masks, slipped into the area, and shut the door behind them. Lindsay then told the big dude to find a map of Jin City. Man, that was easy mode. The map was literally right there. Our boy quickly clocked that. The solo combat tournament was going down at the gym, so he decided to scope it out. As he was cruising through the streets, he overheard some guys debating who the baddest dude in the city was. The green-haired guy, who was probably going to have a different hair color next week, confidently said it was General Zhang Yuanzhang, but his friend shot back that he'd heard the general was sick. Lindsay remembered that in his past life, this guy was ranked #1, but somehow still ended up in 3rd place. The friends kept arguing and wanted to put some money on it. The green-haired dude said he'd bet 500 coins on the general. Right then, Lindsay pops up talking about how much he lives for the betting scene. The guy gave him the location of the betting house, saying it was controlled by the 3 major families. Lindsay thanked him and bounced with the big dude. The scene flips and they pull up to the betting district. Dang, he was impressed the city was still standing. With 3 hours left before the championship kicked off, Lindsay decided to place a bet. They headed to the betting area, and like always, the big guy walked in front, making everyone get out of the way. The bookie asked which tickets he was trying to buy. Lindsay asked how many people had put money on General Zhang Yuanzhang. The guy explained that like a ton of people had bet on him. Lindsay instantly got why the general had only landed in 3rd place in the fast. The guy then asked what Lindsay wanted to put his money on. Lindsay just grinned and bet that the general would finish in 3rd place. The bookkeeper looked super confused and was kind of hesitating to take the bet, but before he could say no, Lindsay slammed his bag of gold on the counter. He announced he was dropping 20,000 gold coins on that result. People started whispering that if he was right, he'd score 60,000 gold. But like, did the betting house even have that much cash? This one girl, though, was sure the general was the GOAT, so she thought Lindsay was just torching 20,000 gold. With a little peer pressure, Lindsay talked the big dude into betting 20,000 too. The bookkeeper was literally shaking, asking if they were for real about dropping 40,000 on 3rd place. Lindsay just told him to chop since the tournament was about to start. Feeling the pressure, the bookkeeper immediately processed the bet and boom, he handed over 2 betting slips. The scene shifts to the gym where the arenas were all set up. The second Lindsay walked in, the system automatically dinged him for 10 gold. You gotta love autopay. He spotted 2 lines, one for spectators and one for competitors, and since security was a complete joke, he just casually slid into the competitor's line. Apparently anyone over level 10 could get in on the action. Once inside, there were all these confident players getting hyped, and there he was, the famous General Zhang Yuanzhang, standing tall and dripping swag with his cape flowing all dramatically. The signal was given and the official tournament of Jing City finally kicked off. The whole competition was split into prelims and then the finals. In the preliminary rounds, only 32 players would make it out of 1,546 people there. A bunch of arenas were scattered across the field where players could either defend a spot or attack one. If you held an arena for 5 minutes, you won. If someone took your spot, you lost. All you had to do was stand your ground and fend off every challenger. Of course, whoever was in the arena was on their own for survival. At any point, they could choose to tap out. With his hands still stuffed in his pockets, Lindsay casually surveyed the battlefield. This was about to be a total chaotic mess. As soon as the match kicked off, players scrambled like crazy to claim the first open arenas, while our boy just moved at his own chill pace. He knew that in the end, all that mattered was being on a platform when time was up. Competition started and Lindsay casually pulled out a card and sat down next to the big dude. They watched the battle board, which displayed all the numbered arenas. The ones marked in red meant fights were already going down. He was impressed at how fast everyone had jumped into the action. As expected, the general was just posted up on his platform, sword in hand, while nobody dared to even breathe in his direction. Meanwhile, Ji Jing, that blonde dude in armor from before, was swarmed by girls, all of them begging him to show them some moves. Lindsay recognized the name. Shi Jing was from the Li family known as the God of War. He hadn't expected to run into a celeb like this so soon, so his efforts had already paid off big time. Then some total no-name player jumped at the general, declaring that even if no one believed in him, he'd be the first to challenge him. With that, the fight began, and all the other players started cheering until the guy got hit by a single sword strike from the general and immediately gave up. The crowd went nuts, chanting Zhang Yuanzhang's name, and more arenas started, getting lit up with fights. Then some hooded figures showed up. Lindsay recognized them immediately. They were the Li family's personal hit squad. A sharp pain in his chest made him remember something. A battle broke out between Mountain Lampard, who was standing there with his arms crossed, and the dude in green named 64. Yep, that was his actual name. Lindsay had been watching everyone like a hawk and knew that 64 was way more skilled than Mountain Lampard. But then, bam! Mountain Lampard landed a solid punch right to 64's face, sending him flying. Even so, Lindsay was betting that 64 would still win. Mountain Lampard's attacks were just way too... So like 64 wipes his nose and then pulls a sneaky weapon from his back. Mountain Leopard is completely oblivious. So 64 fakes another punch, and the second Mountain Leopard ducks. He gets rocked right in the ribs. Mountain Leopard manages to blast him back with a kick, but you can totally tell the fight's slipping away from him. A split second later, Mountain Leopard is already behind 64, ready to lay him out. But man, 64 moves like he's made of rubber, twisting midair and landing a 6 spinning counter. Then he just yeets Mountain Leopard out of the arena like a sack of garbage. Everyone was just like floored by that move and realized this whole tournament was way more hardcore than they signed up for. The Li family was straight up dominating most of the rings, and the crowd was getting super mad and started throwing junk everywhere. Some soldiers were whispering, wondering if the Li family was finally showing its true face. Then some old guy grumbles that he always said the Li family had to be taken down, but everyone was all about keeping the peace. The young warrior was listening in. Sue announces they're starting a war against the three families. Since they're clearly blowing off all the orders, someone literally slams a chair on the floor. It's that white-haired kid screaming that the Lee family is crossing a major line. But the Lee family boss just smirks, saying this is the perfect chance to totally crush the other factions. Meanwhile, in the arena, 64 is like, my bad. Apparently, he accidentally sent his opponent on a permanent vacation. In another ring, the guy's friend is absolutely losing it. Shi Jing rolls up, telling him not to sweat it because he's next on the list. The big oaf is itching for a fight, but his dad tells him to hold his horses. They gotta play it cool. It was super key to scope out everyone's moves before they make their own. Only one match left in Arena 18, and then it's go time. The crowd's whispering that Mountain Leopard doesn't stand a chance against Shi Jing. Lindsay mutters that these people are so not paying attention. In the ring, the dude who lost his buddy charges at Shi Jing, who's prepping his hammer for a meteor strike or something. The hit smashes the ground, sending out this shockwave that just blasts his opponent backward. The dude is still reeling when Shi Jing lunges, calling him way too weak. But right as the hit connects, the guy just vanishes. He reappears behind Shi Jing and manages to get a sword hit in. Except, oops, he hit the armor. Real genius move. He's stunned that Shi Jing is totally fine. But like my dude, you could have just gone for the head. Now he's sent flying from a hammer to the chest, crashing like a broken action figure. Shi Jing closes in on him with absolutely no mercy. At that moment, Zhang Yu and Zhang yell at the guy to just surrender before it's game over. The kid on the ground sighs and calls it quits. Instantly, he's teleported out of there before he could get finished. Then Shi Jing turns to everyone watching and asks if any other clown wants to challenge him. And that's when the biggest clown of them all steps up. Out of nowhere, a masked figure just materializes right in front of him. Nobody has any idea who this guy is. Everyone's wondering why some random player is basically asking for a dirt nap from Shi Jing. Lindsay summons his weapon while Shi Jing smirks. Looks like you want to find out what it feels like to be totally crushed. By my hammer. Lindsay just locks eyes with him. For like 1 second, Shi Jing just freezes up. He sees something seriously terrifying standing behind Lindsay. His body just starts trembling, and he begins backing away and doesn't even know he's doing it. Before the first hit is even thrown, he's already at the very edge of the arena. One more step and he's DQ'd. With no other option, he forces himself to go on the offensive. Even though his body is screaming at him to run, he activates his Crimson Smash thing, and the attack lands dead on, but Lindsay stops it with his sword like it was nothing. A single slash to the side, and the hammer gets knocked right out of Shi Jing's hand. The guy lunges in for a punch, yelling that Lindsay is asking to get deleted, but then something feels weird. Before he can even process what's happening, his body is in pieces, sliced up like a Fruit Ninja game. The crowd goes wild with terror, screaming, wanting to know who just iced the third strongest fighter in the city in a blink. One person jumps up and shouts that they need to check this player's stats, like immediately. Lindsay has already ditched the mask, made his username visible, and declared that he's here for payback. He knew his identity as JY was about to be blown wide open anyway, so he was over it. And then he made it crystal clear he came to Jing City today to get even with the Lee family. Nearby, Ju from the military is watching the whole show. He's kind of psyched because now they might actually have a chance to stop this gross family. And now that everyone knows JY is playing, the other players want zero part of this. They're all basically his fans, especially after he sold them so much good stuff. Back in the Lee family's war room, some guy is nervously biting his nails, mumbling that they've gone way too far. They didn't just mess with the Lee family, they also poked the military, which is only going to make things a nightmare for the three families. The leader of the crew that sent Shi Jing shot back, saying at least the threat is gone now, but he can't believe Shi Jing is actually out of the picture. The worst part, they're now in an all-out war with the military. He reveals they've got soldiers stationed all around the stadium. The moment the prelims wrap up, they plan to invade and start a massive riot. The young guy just sits back and says this is their last chance because if they don't clean up this mess now, they're totally screwed no matter what. The dude in the glasses warns their family that they better not mess up again. Back in the arena, Lindsay has swiped the giant hammer Shi Jing had been using because it used to belong to like one of the city's top dogs. It was super high quality and even had a lifesteal ability which was totally perfect for the big guy. He also snagged a bracelet. That gave his spirit stat a little boost. Then he just summoned a chair and plopped down, super chill, because he knew nobody was going to mess with him. He glanced over to check out Zhang Yuan's fight. His opponent was the Lee family's second in command, a total beast of a fighter who could summon monsters. Lindsay had a feeling this was going to be a rough one. The thing he couldn't figure out was why the Lee family was going so hard in this tournament. Right then, the other guy summoned a tiger from a portal just as Yuan was making his move. Yuan whipped out a sword. From his back blocked the hit and got sent flying back. At the same exact moment, the tiger pounced from behind. It chomped down hard on his shoulder, but Zhang Yuan somehow managed to yeet it off him. But his opponent wasn't letting up, hitting Zhang Yuan with a smoke bomb right to the face. He was blinded for a sec, and then boom, the enemy was right behind him and totally finished the job. The body just dropped to the ground like a sack of trash, and the guy even kicked it to be extra disrespectful. Some players were bummed, saying it was a shame they only got to take him out once. Lindsay thought this was Zhang Yuan's arena, but it was actually just some random soldiers. He figured it out because he saw the real Zhang Yuan in the distance, totally losing it and punching a wall. He swore he'd get revenge on the Li family, and that's when the big guy stepped into the arena. The opponent just gave him a look totally unimpressed. Seriously, this is the best they could send to take me down. He summoned a bear and was all like, time to add another one to the list. In that instant, Lindsay used his mind control to puppet the big guy's moves. The bear swiped and sent him flying. The enemy started trash-talking, saying his crew was way too weak just as the big guy landed, and bam, he was instantly boxed in by two monsters. The summoner told his wolf to hold up, but the thing just charged in anyway. So the big guy faked a retreat, baiting it, then suddenly busted out. A sick b-boy spin kick, knocking the wolf's jaw clean off and sending it flying. Then he nailed the bear with another spinning kick that made a huge explosion. That's when the other dude realized something was up. The big guy had been sandbagging this whole time. He tried to tap out, but before he could even get the words out, the big guy flew in and planted a kick right in his chest. He slammed into the ground and scrambled for the menu to forfeit, but his hand got pinned by the hammer. And then his head went rolling. Lindsay dropped the mind control, and the big guy was standing there grinning like a champ. The crowd went absolutely wild, so hyped that someone was finally putting the Li family in their place. Meanwhile, Lindsay was having his own little party on the sidelines. His only goal was to make life a living nightmare for the Li family in Jing City. But for real, he barely had to lift a finger. They'd already ticked off the military, which was a super dumb move. He kept watching as more fights went down. A little stabby stab here, a slash there. Two girls who could barely even lift their swords, which low-key is kinda sexist. And just like that, the qualifiers were finally over. The players who lost were actually super relieved. For Lindsay, the whole thing was kinda a snooze fest. In the end, 14 soldiers, 10 randos from the fancy families, a few members of some secret clubs, plus Lindsay and the big guy all made the cut. Through. Right then, the big guy was more hyped than ever. He was dying to get his new hammer. Lindsay pulled it out of his inventory and passed it over, and the dude was just beaming. Then, all of a sudden, a system message popped up. Every player who moved on had to go to their assigned info booth. When Lindsay stepped into his, he found this weird orb thingy inside. The second he put his hand on it, the system confirmed he'd qualified. At the same time, his own system hit him up with a special mission. If he took first place, he'd get some exclusive rewards. Like duh, of course he accepted. Outside, Zhang Yu and Trong walked up to him. Zhang tried to introduce himself, but Lindsay just shut him down, saying he already knew who he was. He told him to just spit it out because he didn't have time for games. Seriously, our boy does not mess around. Zhang Yu explained that the city was totally falling apart with the apocalypse and a million other problems, and he wanted to recruit Lindsay. But Lindsay could not have cared less. He basically said that if Zhang didn't have anything good to offer, he should bounce. Zhang just sighed, taking the L, and asked Lindsay instead to meet up with General He. Finally, now we're talking. But Zhang warned him that the military was about to make a move on the three families. They ducked into a private spot away from all the other players and locked the door. Zhang laid it all out. Even before the world went crazy, the three families had a ton of government officials in their pockets. That made it like impossible to go after them, cause taking them down would mess up the whole system. But after the apocalypse hit, tons of those officials turned into zombies, which actually cleared a lot of the roadblocks. Unlike the government, who was actually trying to save Jing City, the three families were just squabbling over power and money. That's why Zhang needed Lindsay's help, especially since he'd already announced in the arena that he was gunning for revenge against the Li family. But Lindsay just laughed. He said if they kept doing things their way, it would take 1 billion years. Zhang was like, huh. Lindsay told him he could tell Zhang had his heart in the right place. But the real question was what was in it for him to take down the entire Li family by himself, and way faster than Zhang could even dream of. Zhang just stared at him, not sure if he was for real, but Lindsay just smirked and was like, better make it a good offer and fast, cause this is a one-time deal. Then he bounced, yelling for the big dude. Outside, it was total chaos with dozens of people running around in a panic. They were screaming that the southwestern walls were down and a massive horde of zombies was pouring in. Apparently anyone who helped defend the place would score a 50% commission bonus in gold. Everyone was scrambling like crazy, but Lindsay knew right away something was sus. He grabbed some random player by the shoulder, making the guy flinch. The dude yelled at him to get off, but the second he saw who it was, he froze up, scared stiff. Lindsay asked what the deal was, and just then, the general showed up, demanding to know what was going on. The player quickly spilled that as soon as the barriers went down. The Li family put out a call for help to stop the invasion, but before anyone could even process what was really happening, the whole situation turned into a disaster, and everyone just bailed. Lindsay asked who the intel came from, but the guy just said everything was a mess. Just like Lindsay figured the Li family had totally set this up, letting monsters into the city just to distract everyone. Obviously, they'd started beef with the military and were using all this chaos as cover to make a run for it. He immediately called the general, telling him the entire Lee family had probably already dipped. Zhang looked super confused, but Lindsay was like, no time to explain. They had to go hunt those clowns down before they got too far. Zhang was on board, saying he'd get the army moving, but that Lindsay should stay put since it was way too dangerous. Then Zhang and the army took off. Meanwhile, Lindsay decided he might as well vibe with the citywide chaos. People were totally buzzing about the insane battle they just saw. They were all talking about some masked swordsman who one-shotted an opponent, but this one guy, hands in his pockets, just scoffed at them. He was like, you guys are nuts. Then he pointed right behind them, and OMG, the exact two people they were talking about were walking right at them. His friend nearly jumped out of his skin because it was really them. They immediately ducked their heads and moved aside, giving Lindsay a clear path. Once he was gone, they let out a huge sigh of relief, just thankful they didn't get wiped out right there. A little bit later, Lindsay and the big dude rolled up to this massive building. Inside, it looked like everyone was waiting for him. They walked through the mob, and the big guy was looking around all confused. The place was packed with players, probably because it was the city's main marketplace. Lindsay used one of the shopping capsules, and a bajillion items popped up in front of him. The only problem was, he noticed pretty fast that everything here was way pricier than in most cities. But for a guy who just made bank selling a ton of gear, the high prices didn't even matter, so he kept on shopping until the sun went down. By 10 p.m., he called the big dude over and said it was time for a fried chicken run. As they were walking down the street, they passed some soldiers. The soldiers warned them to get home immediately, since there was a 10 p.m. curfew. Lindsay just turned around. The soldier recognized him and went ghost white. He immediately backtracked, saying, actually, just forget I said anything. His buddy muttered that they had almost gotten themselves deleted. Lindsay just casually walked off. The scene flips over to the Yin family's mansion. Inside, the white-haired kid was on a rampage, blasting furniture with lightning. He was screaming that Li Shui had completely wrecked their plans. He demanded to know why the idiots who'd made deals with that jerk had suddenly ghosted him. Grabbing one of them by the collar, he snarled, "So how are we supposed to deal with the military now that they're all up in our business?" Right then, a woman walked in. She reported that some player from the tournament had come to see him. He raised an eyebrow. Super weird, but he figured he'd hear them out. After all, that player wanted payback on the Lee family, not him. But then the woman told him that. The kid sent a message asking if he actually planned on keeping the Yin family around. With no other choice, Yin Jing agreed to meet with Lindsay to see what he wanted. So there he was, feet kicked up on the table, like he owned the place. That was Yin Jing, the head of the Yin family. Lindsay walked in, sat down, and commented that Yin Jing seemed a little jumpy, but Yin Jing just cut to the chase, saying he was never on board with the Lee family's plan, so why was Lindsay even here? Lindsay replied that he had no beef with Yin Jing's family, but that they both had a common enemy, the Lee family. Yin Jing made it crystal clear he wasn't about to start a war with them, but Lindsay just smirked, saying he was totally misreading the situation. He wasn't there to talk about war. He was there to talk about a guy working in the Yin family's beekeeping business, a man named Pang Chi. Yin Jing's whole expression darkened. He immediately jumped to the conclusion that Lindsay was trying to say Chi was a Lee family mole. That was impossible. He shot it down hard, saying Lindsay knew nothing about how the three families were founded. But Lindsay just laughed. He said that he knew all about how they raise kids from a young age, train them to be assassins, and use them to take over the city. Even worse, most people connected to the three families were cursed, meaning they could be taken out at any moment and wouldn't even see it coming. Yin Jing slammed the table. That's ridiculous, but Lindsay just told him to put his hand near his belly button and tap his chest 3 times. Yin Jing was hesitant, but he did what he was told. The next second, he coughed up blood. Totally horrified, he demanded to know what the heck just happened. Lindsay calmly asked if he'd been learning any new skills. Straight from the Lee family playbook. But Shaiming was totally in denial, swearing up and down it was his family's secret sauce for like centuries. Lindsay just sighed, knowing this was going to be a whole thing. But back in his first life, Shaiming only managed to shake the curse after he got super OP in the apocalypse. By then, the damage was done. The Lee family had already jacked everything from him. Even worse, they snatched his wife and kid. This time, he wasn't about to let that kind of talent go to waste. Totally backed into a corner, Shaiming finally caved and asked, "How do I ditch this curse? How much time do I even have left?" Lindsay just smirked, saying it all came down to how fast he could yoink the cure from the Lee family. Shaiming gave a grim nod, saying he'd get on it ASAP. But Lindsay, always ready to spill the tea, leaned in and was like, "So I know about another mole in your crew." Shaiming's eyes went sharp. "Who?" Lindsay slid a file onto the table. It had the deets on every single Lee family spy. But of course, there was a catch. That little piece of paper was going to cost him 200,000 gold coins. Shaiming's face got stormy as he slammed the table again. "Dude, at this point, you might as well just mug me." Lindsay just grinned and told him to hit him with a counteroffer. After a super long pause, Shai Ming reluctantly grumbled that 80,000 was his absolute max. Lindsay laughed, cause negotiating with desperate people was always a good time. Still, he shot the offer down. He told Shai Ming that 80,000 was chump change compared to what he'd lose when his whole world imploded. And then boom, scene change, and now he's some regular-looking dude in a suit with brown hair. Lindsay was back in his room holding this fire scroll. It had the instructions for a legit flame-powered magic carpet, and since he had fire powers, he could totally rock it no problem. The next morning, Homeboy was completely wiped from grinding all night. One of the sick new moves he'd learned let him coat his weapon in flames. He fired up the ability right away, slashing the air, and was shook at how easy it was. Then he took aim at the table. The second his blade touched it, the whole thing just melted like lava. Feeling pretty good about himself, he called over the big guy. Now, all the prep for the final match was done. Outside the stadium, everyone was placing bets on who'd take the crown. Then a message popped up telling all the finalists to get to their booths ASAP and get set. Right then, Zhang Yuan called out to our MC and said he'd already talked to the big boss about that thing he asked for. They wanted to have a sit-down with our guy after the tournament. Our MC thanked him and was like, "Cool, no problem," while secretly thinking this was the perfect chance to shake these officials down. He then walked up to this orb and put his hands on it. The tourney rules were kind of complicated, but basically winner advances, loser goes home. Our guy then popped into the room and a voice announced the competition was about to kick off, and the first matchups were being picked. The first dude our MC had to fight was number 13. He hit the start button, and next thing you know, he was zapped away. He materialized, and this guy was spawning right in front of him. Before even getting a good look, the dude was already bragging about his poison-laced dagger, but the second he saw it was our MC, he literally dropped to his knees and was like, "My bad," saying there was no way he was fighting him. And just like that, our guy moved on and snagged 2 points. The crowd was shook, saying the guy forfeited in, like, 0.1 seconds, which had to be a new record. Meanwhile, some totally not suspicious bald dude was super interested in our MC. A little while later, a mushroom had literally sprouted on his head. Since nobody wanted to throw down with him, he decided to just watch the other fights, because it was the only thing that wasn't totally boring. Oh snap, was that Zhang Yuan versus the big guy, our MC. Decided to scope out the general's stats and saw he had a ton of slashy and explodey skills. He charged in to hit the big guy, his blade all fiery, but the big dude blocked it with his hammer. He tried to come at him from above, but the general was quicker, blasting out a shockwave that made him back off again. The general was actually impressed that this henchman of the kids was just as strong as him, but like he could not afford to lose this fight, or his rep in the army would be totally trashed. Meanwhile, the big guy was getting texts from Lindsay warning him that if he didn't take down Zhang Yuan, he was going to be cut off from chicken nuggets for a while. So naturally, he instantly went into berserker mode and charged the general again. Bro, are you seriously gonna try and block a hammer swing with a sword? It was pretty sick that he managed to slide and dodge the hit. At the same time, he popped an army blessing that gave him a 20% damage reduction buff. He rushed the big guy again, but even faster this time. He was going for his back while keeping his guard up, but the brute somehow countered backwards, sending him flying back and getting dragged across the floor. He was already spitting up blood, and he realized this guy was way more of a beast than he thought. He was going to have to pull out his trump card, so the war general spirit appeared, and a second later he transformed. And not just that, he summoned a whole army. Dude, I gotta say, this general's got some serious style, and Lindsay was hyped because he remembered from his first life that this dude used the army release technique to totally wreck a level 80 zombie. This was like a baby version of that epic technique, but it was still super powerful. The big guy let out a huge roar, got set, and launched himself at the general. This time, he prepped a triple slash and clashed head-on with the dude who was diving right at him. A massive golden explosion just went off right in the middle of them. Arena, like totally blinding everyone on stage, and the whole place was just wrecked. The general was on the ground, completely gassed, but right there, our favorite big dude was down too. But get this, the guy's a freaking zombie, and even though he was bleeding like a whole swimming pool's worth, he somehow got back up. He just stared down the general, who was struggling and not looking so hot. Then so weird, he cracked a smile, and our big dude smiled right back. They had this epic face-off while the crowd went wild, all like finally a real fight. Even Lindsay was super impressed by how they both threw down. He had like no clue who was going to win. And honestly, who knows if we won or lost, but next thing you know, we're back in the room. The general was about to get patched up, but he was all, take care of the big guy first. But our boy was like, nah, it's cool, I already gave him some meds. The general was like, I bet, but just holler if you need anything. Obviously, Lindsay wasn't about to let any doctor get close to his boy, because then they'd find out he's a zombie. So, yeah, I guess the whole competition was a wrap. The system messages popped up saying, the number 1 rank gets a gold item, and number 2, our big dude gets a silver item. I mean, considering even the general's top guy got clapped by him, it's no surprise he was no match for our boy. In the crowd, people were totally bugging that the general only got 3rd place. Not to mention the one dude with gold gear just got another asterisk piece. Then, over by the arena, some totally not suspicious guy was watching the whole thing go down. I'm pretty sure it was that kid from the Lee family punching a wall and being all salty, blaming everything on Lindsay. People saw him dip out of the arena before anyone could get a good look. Meanwhile, everyone else is celebrating, and our boy is just chilling, munching on some food. And yep, that was it. The system declared him the winner, and he got the golden blink boots. IDK, why I even thought this would be a real competition? Our boy has always been way too OP for everyone. These boots had some crazy teleporting powers, so it makes sense. They were the grand prize. The second he put them on, some of his stats shot past 100, and since he won, he also snagged the mission reward the system had for him. He opened it up, and boom! Silver rank Shadow Demon gloves. Lindsay was like, wait, these are part of the set I'm already rocking. So it was kind of wild that the system gave him that exact piece. But now with the full set combo, the effect got a 15% boost, which is pretty sweet. Meanwhile, the big dude was happily chowing down on a chicken thigh when our boy told him to hurry up and check the system. The guy looked totally confused and kind of scared, and then our boy saw it. For second place, he got some lame-o silver chestplate, and he knew right away the reward was total trash. The big guy, though, was just bummed his chicken fell on the floor. Our boy just called out to him saying they had more important things to deal with, obviously talking about collecting their bet winnings, because that was a boatload of cash. Outside, some people were looking kind of stressed. A soldier came running up needing to talk to our boy. Apparently, there was some emergency meeting going down, and our boy was summoned. He was like, what's the deal? And the guy explained that while the tourney was on, the Lee family pulled a super shady move. Shocker, right? They basically baited a huge horde of zombies to the area and just dumped them in the city. Since all the heavy hitters were at the arena, the army tried to fight back, but over 1,000 soldiers died. But Lindsay knew that. No way the Lee family, even as strong as they are, could have pulled that many zombies together that fast. So he declared he was crashing this emergency meeting and cut to the next scene. We're in the conference room. General Yu slams the table and is all, this isn't up for debate anymore. The Lee family totally showed their true colors. Himu tried to get everyone to chill, saying they needed to figure out a plan. But this other dude in a hat was like, now's not the time to go after the Lee family. We need to focus on rebuilding the city. A couple of guys in suits on the side totally agreed with him. They were arguing that they couldn't mess with the Lee family's rep or people would lose faith in the whole three-faction alliance. Everyone was trying to talk the old man out of it, saying it was way too risky to make a move right now. Then Jiang slammed the table and said it was insane to think they could finish the safe zone while the Lee family was out there sabotaging everything. He basically called them out, asking how much they were getting paid to kiss up to the Lee family. Himu was like, everybody calm down, trying to say their loyalty was to the city. Meanwhile, the other family's reps chimed in, saying they had to think about the bigger picture and how risky this all was. Then someone else spoke up, totally agreeing with General Jiang, and looked at the door. And who walks in? Our main character. But Himu immediately tried to get him kicked out, saying some player like him had no business in their meeting, and then the old guy next to him clapped back that he was the one who ranked first in the championship, so his opinion totally mattered. Even then, Himu argued that they couldn't just share top-secret info with some random dude and ordered a soldier to bounce him. That's when General Xing stepped up saying, I invited him. Anyone got a problem with that? Himu still insisted that bringing in some rando they didn't know was way too risky. And that's when Lindsay dropped a bomb saying that while Himu might not know him, he knew exactly who Himu was, a guy whose wife and daughter were turned into zombies. But the dude kept on fighting for the army, like total beast mode. He climbed the ranks through pure grit, but then our guy hits him with a question, ever heard of a Lin Kai? Yu totally flinched, shooting a look at the Lee family, and then our guy drops the bomb. He knows the Lee family told IU that this person was his son and that he was still alive. And that's why IU's been their puppet ever since, doing whatever the Lee family said to keep this guy safe. The general jumps up like, you know this for real. But right then, a system alert pops up for everyone warning them a zombie invasion is starting in 5 hours. And from the looks of the giant pop-up, this wasn't just any horde, it was going to be epic. Himu starts shaking, whispering, is this even possible? Then he just loses it, laughing like a total psycho, saying that the Lee family still had some moves left. He's all like, this place is toast, basically telling everyone they're about to get wrecked. Kaiwi just straight up slaps him across the face, calling him a monster. But Himu's just like, whatever, I'm so over taking orders from you old dudes, and says he can't wait to watch them all get taken out. Lindsay's thinking, this is super weird though. This kind of mega horde isn't supposed to drop until way later in the game. The alert then breaks it down for an invasion this massive to happen. 3 things have to be true. First, the spot needs to have a solid base. Second, a crazy amount of zombies had to be piling up nearby. And last, some boss-level creature that can control the whole horde had to spawn. Our guy's still not buying it, which is weird because the base is barely even halfway done. Any horde could just roll in and trash the place. He buries his face in his hand like, oh, here we go again. And then he snatches Himu by the collar and says since he outed the rat, he's taking him. Jung's cool with it as long as he makes sure Himu's end is seriously messed up. Our boy thanks him. and says that if they need anything, just hit him up. With that, he bounces, saying they've got a ton of stuff to do. Outside, he basically dumps Himu on the ground while some soldiers walk by the army dudes, who are whispering about how he's being hauled around like a sack of potatoes and wondering if Jir really leveled up that much. Himu's got this look on his face, the one you usually see on some damsel in distress, staring at the hero, but what he gets is a chokehold, and his face slammed right into the dirt. Himu's just like, just end me already. I don't even care, since we're all gonna die when the horde gets here anyway. And that's when it clicks for everyone. This dude is a total traitor. Right then, Lindsay whips out a scroll and throws up a soundproof barrier so no one can eavesdrop. The orb flares to life, and the big guy stands guard to keep people out. Himu just keeps running his mouth, saying there's no escape because the city's on lockdown and everyone's gonna bite it. In here, our guy just shuts him up with a punch to the face, sending teeth flying. Then he asks where the head of the Lee family, Lee Lixuan, is hiding out. Of course, Himu's not talking, and our boy replies that he loves it when they play hard to get. He gets right in his face and asks if he's ready to talk now. The dude says no, so he gets a nasty pinch on his hand. While he's twisting it, our guy says he can't wait to hear all the juicy details Himu got from the Lee family. At this point, the guy is literally begging to be put out of his misery. This was almost too easy, but our guy just tells him that as long as he's holding out, he gets to stay alive. He stops the pain for a sec, and then asks if Himu's tired of the act yet. Before the dude can even answer, he goes for his other hand. This time, he wants to know what orders Lee Lixuan gave him. Himu spills everything. He smuggled resources and sometimes sent soldiers on suicide missions. Once again, our guy wants to know what Lee Lixuan told him. Right before he skipped town yesterday, he says they just told him to stall any moves against the Lee family for as long as he could. Then Lindsay jumps in asking about a meetup spot or how they talk. Himu brings up a place called Chamardun and says the Lee family runs it. Our guy asks if he's got anything else, and Himu says he's tapped out. Right then, Himu's thinking that now this psycho's gonna want to keep him alive to mess with him later, but once the chaos hits, he'll find a way to dip. Yeah, Lindsay wasn't about to give him that chance. He just ends it with a clean snap to the neck, kicks him aside, and even pops open an umbrella, all dramatic-like. Dude was super dead, even left an eyeball rolling on the pavement. Then cut to the betting house where our guy went to cash in on his bet. The lady checks the records and is like, wow, you actually called the general coming in third, according to the math he was about to get. A whopping 123,000 gold coins. It was crazy easy. She just tapped the system and boom, the money's in his account. Just like that, he walks out totally loaded. A little later, he and the big guy are chilling at Jing's shop. While our dude is browsing, the monster, Glutton, is just inhaling his chicken. Our guy manages to snag the city's token for 225,000 gold coins. Dang, that thing was not cheap. The people outside were freaking out, wondering who this mystery whale with all the cash was. Next thing you know, our guy steps out of the shop and everyone's just staring jaws on the floor at his hand. He had finally got the thing he was after, the city honor emblem, which came with some seriously sweet perks. Once every 2 days, he could blast an announcement that the entire city would hear. He could also inflict fear pain and all kinds of nasty status effects way easier during fights in the area. Plus, the drop rates for items from monsters in the city were jacked up, and anyone who tried to jump him would lose stats for 5 minutes. Plus, he could summon some epic creature from Jing whenever. But as he bounced, he was kind of salty, thinking, for 225,000 coins, he should have gotten way more. Goodies. Like you could at least summon the city's legend dragon. Only catch, it was only out for 2 minutes. Now it was time to drop more cash and get a fresh fit for the big goof, the lunatic, making them the ultimate duo. They were totally twinning now. Meanwhile, back in the war room, someone was like, General, and Zong asked for the sitch, so the soldier broke down the whole attack was gonna be. One dude was thankful they had a bunch of players from the championship, but someone else was like, yeah, but the Lee family still took out a ton of the army's dudes. Zong sized up the whole mess and figured best case they could only cover 2 directions. Someone asked if they basically had to guess where the zombies would pop up, and Zhang was like, yep. So the soldiers said they had to stack their defenses in the 2 spots the zombies would probably hit first. The problem, if the horde swarmed from a different direction, they'd have to scramble all their troops, and by then, it could be game over. The guy in blue pointed out that without defensive towers to back them up, the city could get totally wrecked, but Shu was like, we've got no other options. So they had to pick which directions to lock down like now. They all agreed Zhang knew his stuff when it came to fighting, so they'd roll with his call. They decided to guard the east and the west. The walls on the west side were still under construction, and on the east, the Lee family had already trashed everything. The zombies would obviously go for the weak points. It looked like the general just went with it, and the 2 bounced. Meanwhile, our main character, looking extra sharp today, was just chilling on his bed, scrolling through the system. He could totally dip on these monsters and ditch the city. The only issue was, if everyone got wiped, there'd be some serious fallout. So he grabbed the megaphone, typed something up, and blasted it out. No clue what it was. Apparently, it was top secret. JK, no, it wasn't, because the message popped right up on screen for us. He totally called out the Lee family, telling everyone they were the snakes who set up the whole invasion. Meanwhile, over at the Lee family's crib, their main dude was already fuming about our guy, and he hadn't even seen the message yet. He was mumbling that if he ever got the shot, he would rip the Lee family as the traitors behind the whole zombie apocalypse. Because of that, everyone who was backing the Lees started bailing on them, and they were losing a massive chunk of their crew. He asked if the people from their shady op were dipping too, and the old guy confirmed it. Nobody wanted to be on their team anymore. Help saying the poor guy blacked out from being so mad. At 8:30 on the east side, the army was starting to get ready. Nuno asked if the whole squad was there, and the officer said they had 50,000 soldiers on deck. 20,000 were actual military, 15,000 were from the city's fancy families, and another 15,000 were from smaller crews. Plus, there was another 100,000 in the back ready to help out. They were so not ready for this. If those things actually got to them, it was probably game over. The general shut his eyes for a sec, and then was like, "It's fine. As long as they make sure those things don't break the line, we've got nothing to worry about. Besides, there's no going back now. The North and South will have a skeleton crew, just enough to stall the monsters while they move people around. All they could really do was hope the attack landed where they were actually ready for it." Then the system announced that the invasion was about to kick off and would go for 5 hours. The general glanced at the city, and over at the Kyoto building, everyone was huddled around a big blue crystal. A notification about merit points popped into everyone's heads. Apparently, the players figured out the crystal was a big deal and needed to be protected. The general ordered the top-tier players to post up there while the army focused on holding down the front line. Then someone asked if they should hit up the big goof and our boy Jang. But he knew those two were total wild cards, so there was no point in even trying to give them orders. He just told the officer to hurry up and pass on the other info. Meanwhile, our guy was in his room leveling up his water skills. He'd just learned a new vortex move that basically sucked monsters into the middle, which was perfect for crowd control. Then the system pinged, saying that since the area was about to get wrecked, a new quest was dropping. Since the zombie army was way stronger than the city, if he somehow survived and got the top rank, he'd score a golden item and 2 cheat codes. Lindsay was shook that even the system was admitting the city's team was weak sauce. For real, whatever was coming was not going to be a cakewalk. He instantly grabbed the big goof and was like, "Bro, stop snacking. We've got a ton of work to do." Had to deal with it. They bounced from the building, hit the streets, and then, bam! The system announced the attack was starting. A major warning flashed for our guy, and right in front of him, this red ore thing started getting huge. And out of it, a whole freaking mob of zombies just popped up. The creatures started shuffling toward the city, and get this, they all had these little system windows floating over their heads. So weird. Even from far away, you could tell the horde was basically infinite. As they started swarming, the general threw up his arms, yelling for everyone to get ready and charge. A huge golden star just slammed into the middle of the zombie mob. Ice spikes erupted from the ground, taking out a bunch, and giant slimes were summoned to keep them busy while the general was all like, "Keep moving forward." I totally thought the army would be using guns, but nope, they had magic too. Sucks for the unlucky ones with zero talent who had to go toe-to-toe with zombies just to get wrecked. From a distance, John was just watching the chaos unfold when an officer reported that they were holding the line for now. The general ordered the 3rd defense line to fall back and catch a breather, then sent in the 2nd squad, right when someone else screamed that a horde of 7,000 zombies just showed up in the north and they needed backup like ASAP. This was his worst nightmare for real. He immediately demanded to know what was up with the eastern region. The officer was like, "It's too soon to tell, but they knew our boy was over there." Thing is, nobody had seen the big dummy. The general was probably thinking, is that reckless main character seriously gonna try and solo a whole horde? He told the officer to get more intel while he watched the army push forward. This one young soldier was all hyped up saying if he was gonna go down, he wanted it to be epic. Meanwhile, over at the eastern wall, the troops had their swords out all on the same vibe. They were totally ready to die for their country. And then someone bolted out of a tent yelling that Lou McG was charging into the fight all by himself. Our guy literally jumped off the wall sword in hand while the soldiers were screaming that it was a suicide mission. But when they on fire, in like a single second, the whole place was just smoke, and he just kept charging straight into the mob. The soldiers watching started feeling like total chumps for not helping, and then, one by one, they charged out of the base. No way they were going to let him handle all that alone. The whole army moved out and started wrecking zombies in the middle of the mess our guy was making. Vortexes sucking in all the undead. His mana was dropping fast from going so hard with the magic, so he literally pulled out a tiny chair and some tea to chill. But just then, some huge zombie launched a poison attack. He just casually closed his teacup, teleported behind the zombie, and gave it a solid kick before slicing another one down. He even muttered something about how this was still way too easy, but like more and more zombies were creeping up behind him. He stuck out his hand, firing up a water vortex that swallowed a crazy number of zombies. Once they were all bundled up, he made a fireball. And he was actually getting worried he'd have to sacrifice like a fourth of his entire army just to deal with this one guy. The problem was, if he waited too long, backup would show up, and the whole plan would be toast. The mission could not fail because of one person. Since his special zombies weren't cutting it, he decided to just dogpile him with everything he had. But Lindsay had already bought a decoy scarecrow from the system shop. He dropped it on the ground, the zombies instantly swarmed it, and he dipped out like it was nothing. The only problem was that some of the zombies were starting to push towards the gates. Even with all his OP skills, he couldn't stop them from coming at him from every direction, and based on how many were showing up, the northern front was probably about to collapse too. He crouched down, launched himself into the air, and activated the city's medallion. He'd also chugged a spirit potion at the same time. The medallion started glowing with this intense purple. Totally took it as a sign from above. Our boy then landed completely stoked to see what the medallion's deal was. Out of nowhere, in the middle of the zombie horde, a purple spirit surrounded by lightning appeared. The soldiers, terrified of getting zapped, immediately booked it. Meanwhile, Lindsay just watched it move forward. It was this spooky, silent ghost thing that was totally self-aware. Even Lindsay was impressed. It was a legit legendary ranked creature. The way it stared at him made him wonder if it could actually think and understand him. But there was zero time to find out. There were just way too many zombies. He used his mind control skill to make the Kirin charge right into the zombie mob. A single bolt of lightning arced through all of them. Lindsay was like, "Yep, this is the perfect element for dealing with these freaks." The summon. Okay, so the mist started clearing up, and boom, the creature just turned into a crystal and totally shattered. But hey, at least it held on long enough for our guy to hit level 27. All the other players were freaking out with joy, because the crystal was still in one piece. This one girl, though, was totally shook that the top-ranked player just leaped straight to level 27. And like always, our boy scored some sweet loot. One was a thunder element orb that he could use on the tree gems to figure out or even predict an element. The other thing was a dragon scale that cranked up his health regen and gave his lightning damage a major boost. For him, this was the absolute perfect combo. He was like, wait, could I just rip off a scale every time I summon the dragon and make a whole suit of armor? But even with that genius idea, there were still some zombies hanging around the city. Notice that they were acting kinda timid now. The only weird part was the dragon totally wrecked them so hard that he didn't get any drops to power up, so he decided to use the scale right away. The second he activated it, it literally fused into his chest and made this sick dragon emblem. His stats shot up and so did his regen. Now that the zombies had bailed, he figured it was time to check out other areas. Meanwhile, the army dudes were super stoked to be fighting with him. I mean, obviously some were bummed about all their fallen buddies, but it was time to regroup and go help out the other regions. The crew defending the crystal was bugging out over the merit rankings. This one girl was like, no way the top player has that huge of a lead. At the same time, in another part of the zombie invasion, this gnarly bat thing was swooping in. The only people who could even touch a creature like that were the mages, so they started blasting their spells into the sky. Meanwhile, the general in that area was basically yelling, "Did anyone call for backup?" because they were seriously about to lose it. Right when he was giving orders, the whole ground started to rumble. These things coming from underground were huge, and swords were literally doing nothing to them. At the same time, spells kept lighting up the sky as they tried to take down the flying monsters, but up ahead, another freaking wave of creatures was closing in. The general screamed at them to hold the line because the crystal was right behind them, and they couldn't let a single thing get past. The soldiers charged. They got into formation right in front of the monsters and put up their shields. The mages kept slinging fireballs, but one of the giants just swung its massive fist and sent a whole squad of soldiers flying. Seriously, those shields were more of a liability than a help. Dudes were getting snatched up and thrown around like dolls. The creatures just kept coming while the captain up top was yelling for them to hold their ground, swearing that backup was on the way. The artist, I guess, decided to make things even harder by throwing in a new creature, the transparent zombie. It was straight up invisible even, down into the street, totally vaporizing the monster. When he looked over, it was the big idiot rolling up looking all cool. But get this, he was actually being controlled by Lindsay, who was close by to make sure the crystal didn't get wrecked. He just plowed forward, slicing through the huge zombies and the invisible ones like it was nothing. Him being there gave everyone a major second win, but just then, something zipped by at insane speed, heading right for the crystal. This monster was moving so fast, its skin was literally changing colors as it attacked. Right before it got to the crystal, a spinning hammer raged on until after a while the whole area was clear. Everyone was wiping sweat off their faces, and there was this blonde dude there looking super cool named Joanne. An army officer told him he could chill. After fighting so hard, all the players were hyping him up, saying they saw him take on a zombie solo, and it was epic. He didn't say anything back though. Turns out the guy was mute. He sat down to take a break when someone walked up. It was the big idiot, and everyone else thought maybe they were friends or something. But then the big idiot just raised his hammer and slammed him into the ground. Everyone was totally stunned, but then his body started to change. In the puddle of blood, this skinny, weak-looking creature showed up. Turns out it was a parasite that could body snatch people and use all of their stats. Its only weakness was that it couldn't talk. It all clicked for everyone. Then that's why Joanne never said anything back. Our guy called over the big idiot and said it was time to bounce to the next region. And just like that, he let go of the controls, and the scene cut over to General John's battlefield. There were tons of zombies all over the ground, and it looked like, with the army's help, he'd managed to hold down that area. The only problem was, right then, he got a message saying their defenses were about to break, and the whole zone was completely trashed. He ordered the troops to fall back to another defense line, but the young soldier next to him was like, "That's crazy." He tried to explain how risky it was to run right then, but the general was firm, saying they had no call. It was literally their only shot at making it out alive. Then he turned and saw our boy strolling up, hands in his pockets, just radiating main character energy. This young soldier's eyes literally started tearing up as he cheered that they didn't have to bail anymore because the hero was here. Even the general was celebrating, and just like that, our boy launched himself right into the chaos. The general just stood there looking totally clowned, remembering this kid never listens to him anyway. But whatever, they were both hyped. It was go time. A blonde soldier was up front declaring that he would die for the city, but our boy just put a hand on his shoulder and was like, "Yo, give me the rundown." The soldier explained that they'd been holding the line for a super long time, but the front line was totally gassed. Out of 50,000 troops, only 10,000 were left, and most of them were running on fumes. Our boy was shook that zombies were still popping up in this zone. Good thing he showed up when he did. Then some army dudes who looked like they just logged off a Call of Duty marathon showed up looking all fresh and saying they were ready to throw down with him. Lindsay whipped out his spear, flicked on the fire effects, juiced it with some magic, and just dove into the zombie mob. One slammed to the ground, and the creatures were more ready to dip than to fight. The spear's power made these bubbles form inside them, which just got bigger and then popped from the inside. The whole area was getting cleared out fast. Our boy was just cleaning house. He yanked his spear back, gave it a spin, and unleashed this massive fire wave. The attack slammed the horde, and then he yeeted the spear into some giant's chest, and the thing just punched right through. It flew off into the distance, blew up, and then zipped right back to his hand. That thing is totally hacked, isn't it? While the Call of Duty squad stood there completely stunned, our boy was already charging the next wave. A little bit later, he'd already hit level 29, standing in a field of wrecked zombies. The soldiers were totally bugging out watching him level up like it was nothing. Meanwhile, Lindsay noticed that his inventory was getting ridiculously full. He couldn't even feed his sword anymore, so he just started tossing loot on the ground. Right then, General Zhang and the troops gave our boy a full-on salute, telling him he'd totally saved their lives. Our boy just shrugged it off like it was no biggie, and even left some of the drops on the battlefield for them. Then he just bounced. A while later, he was chilling in a cabin, flipping through the skill books he got. One of them gave a random ability, so he was praying to the Holy Dragon for some good RNG. When he cracked it open, he got the Scarlet Pupil ability. His eyes basically got a zoom lens, letting him see stuff super far away. Plus, he could mess with people's heads by creating illusions right in their eyeballs. He figured the skill had to be good since he'd prayed to the Holy Dragon. He popped the skill immediately, only to feel this sharp pain in his face. Seriously, every time this dude learns a skill, his eyes start leaking. The system congratulated him. Crazier than he imagined. Then the system pinged that there were 15 minutes left before the Horde event ended, and our boy realized he'd spent way too much time suffering just to learn this skill. He grabbed some weird fire orb and just teleported out of the cabin. The general was in a meeting room when our boy just phased in and called out to him. Immediately, the guy bowed and thanked him, saying that without him, they would have been totally wiped by this zombie horde. Lindsay just waved it off like it was cool, but he wanted to know if the general knew at least 4 people in the top rankings. The general confirmed that he did, but wanted to know what was up. Lindsay told him to get those people here because he'd explain everything once they were all together. The general agreed, but warned that calling so many zombie emperor. They were a little shook, but they admitted it actually made sense. The attack had been way too organized. Then our protag reminded them that on top of the zombie emperor, the Leaf family was in on it too. The whole group was on board, saying that countless people got taken out in the attack, and it was time for some payback. At that moment, our boy revealed that once the event ended, they would get a shot at a counterattack. However, the decision was going to be made through a vote among the top-ranked players. If more than half of them agreed to strike back, the event would kick off. Basically, this would trigger a small-scale war between the strongest players on both sides. If they won, all the zombies in Sayu would get a massive debuff. If they lost, everyone who participated would get deleted, and the safe zone's reconstruction would get pushed back by a whole month. The dude with the bandana was all in, while some girl questioned if they were just walking into their own doom. Everyone was hesitating. The general hesitated for a second, then just nodded. With that, he ordered everyone to cooperate with the kid, even though the group still looked super sketched out. With no other choice, they slapped on a fake smile and told him they were hyped to see what he'd pull off. Right on cue, system messages popped up for everyone announcing that they had successfully defended Jing City. Even the zombie was ranked number 1. A system pop-up asked if he wanted to kick off the counterattack. He slammed yes, and instantly the message confirmed all 10 top players were in. Watching the squad roll out, the captain remembered some tea about nabbing a platinum chest. Someone bought that info from the game store, and now he was pretty sure Lindsay was in on it, too, which explained why he was so dead set on payback. After that, the whole city was buzzing about the counterattack. People were hyped, saying playing defense all the time was getting so lame. Now they could finally go on the attack and show everyone what humanity was made of. A massive system window popped up, streaming the fight for everyone, and right in the center of the arena, our dude and his monster were already there. These zombies that crawled out looked straight out of Dragon Ball Z no cap. Lindsay muttered that this shadow illusion zombie emperor was the one who totally wasted him in his past life. He never thought he'd run into him this early on. Apparently any zombie that gets past level 90 gets called an emperor. Plus, when they hit that level, they also get the power to mind control any creature they want. Before he got wrecked last time, our boy and the war gods made a pact, the alliance of the 9 war heroes. 3 were from the government, 3 were from the Leaf family, and 3 were basically lone wolves. The thing about being a lone wolf is that nobody really has your back. Some people wanted to help, while others just wanted to use them and mess up their lives. And since our dude got way too OP, the Leaf family hired some other players to take him out before he got too big for his britches. But today, the emperor who set this whole thing up was about to get wrecked by his own hands. The system announced it was a fight to the death. Each side sends one fighter who can use whatever kind of weapon or gear they want. The match is over when one whole side is wiped out. Our dude just stood there staring down the horde, and that emperor who'd been watching him fight was already shaking in his boots. None of the enemies made a move, so the system was like, if you don't send someone, we're picking one randomly. Just then, the first fighter, some zombie with dragon wings, hopped into the arena. Lindsay was like, are they serious? They sent a level 18 zombie, totally underestimating him. He pulled out his sword, and the zombie just booked it. Our dude could tell it was trying to stall, but he just zipped in and sliced it. The body dropped, and the clueless zombie crowd was totally shook. Man, that zombie was nasty looking for real. They figured out they had to switch up their game plan and stop messing around. That's when this massive grave brood thing showed up in the arena. Our boy was kinda impressed. It was a hybrid. Looked like they finally realized they couldn't just play around anymore, but it still wasn't going to be enough to win. He charged in and slashed right at its chest, but the thing looked like it didn't even feel it. Our dude used a special move with his sword and actually managed to stab its rock-hard chest, but then the blade got stuck. He could see the creature looking all smug, but that wasn't going to cut it. He twisted his sword and ripped a whole chunk off its shoulder. He dodged to the side, powered up his blade with an aura, and jumped at the creature again, while all the zombies started doing this weird chant. Everyone was covering their faces, whispering about some kind of ritual. Suddenly, a deep gash appeared on all their heads, and the giant thing started bleeding. The brute stretched out its arms, yelling, "This was for the zombies." Then it tore a piece right off the first zombie's head and started chowing down. The system explained it was some forbidden ritual where the one getting eaten loses all its power, and the one eating gets a major buff. Lindsay had never seen anything that wild before, but he knew he had to shut it down fast. He shot a green slash at the brute, but the monster threw up a crazy defense shield. The attack hit, but the creature had blocked with its arms. But then our dude sent a tiny sword that snuck right past its defense and blew up inside. Even after that, the creature was still standing, but right then a vortex appeared at its feet. Slashing with his fire sword, finally, the creature took some damage. He even got an item drop called the Stone Jar. It gave him a skill that puts up a defensive shield around you, but it had a 98-hour cooldown, which is a total drag. While our dude was checking his loot, some gnarly presence crept up. It was a nasty, rotting zombie. Lindsay just muttered that this one wouldn't last as long as the last one. He pulled his sword, saying he had to speedrun this and stop the ritual. Then he attacked. A giant green slime thing rose up with a monster in the middle, but our boy could see the weak spot in its technique with his new eye. He let loose another combo, hitting the exact weak point, and just like that, the creature looked like it was toast. This time, instead of getting anything good, he got some trash potion. He yelled for the monsters to just come at him already, but their leader was busy snacking on everyone. Then the boss finally stood up and announced that it was too late, because he was about to get owned. But Lindsay just clapped back that if it wasn't for the arena's shield, the zombie wouldn't even be talking trash. The creature stepped up, and finally, they were face to face with the Emperor of the Wind, a gold-ranked boss at level 24 plus 8 extra levels from eating his own crew. Our dude was stoked. A boss with stats that high was bound to drop some epic loot. Item. But then he kinda paused, because the system flashed a warning about a super high-risk duel. He figured if he was going to put his life on the line, he better get some serious rewards for it. Then Balloonhead started muttering about how he never dreamed his master plan would get wrecked by one human. Lindsay was like, no way was that messed up family already working with the zombies. It all made sense now why the attack popped off the second they tried to bounce, and why the bosses just showed up out of nowhere. The creature then broadcast a message to all humans calling itself Ruang. It declared its crew was going to totally wipe out all humans, even the so-called heroes sent to stop them, but our boy was just standing right there powering up his fire technique. A sick green sphere formed around the zombie, and our boy just charged right at it. The monster was totally shocked by his nerve and just blasted off into the sky. Our boy, who loves to troll, asked if it was really going to run. Before the fight even got good. Just then, the zombie switched to wind moves, slammed the ground, and threw up a barrier to block our dude's flames. It looked like he was struggling to push back, and in the background, our boy was literally thinking, "This is easier than I thought." From inside the zombie's own attack, his sword sliced through and nailed the creature right in the chest. The monster stumbled back, and our guy got blasted back by the wind barrier. The monster tried to catch its breath for a sec, but it was way too late. Lindsay was already closing in again. He went for another slash, but suddenly, the creature teleported up into the sky. Lindsay just smirked, saying that was the whole point, to force it to use that ability since it was its get-out-of-jail-free card. The creature was freaking out, like how could a human who had no clue who it was know about that move? With no escape, it knew it had to go all out and launched another attack. Our boy just yeeted his sword like a boomerang, and it crashed right into the monster's attack. The boss was already bleeding from its nose. It was burning so much energy. It fired up another technique and launched it right at Lindsay. Lindsay was actually impressed, like, whoa, it can use two skills at once. It seemed like this fight was going to drag on, or maybe not, because the monster suddenly just collapsed. Totally gassed from using way too much mana. Our boy gave it some credit, though. It must have had some insane mental power to pull that off, seeing the creature get up with its eyes closed. He wondered if it was completely out of it. The whole city was watching as our guy said he was going to end its suffering. He put up a barrier, and even though the zombie was inside its own wind tornado, he just strolled right into the attack. At the same time, he activated his scarlet pupil and scoped out the creature in the middle of the vortex. He noticed the monster was basically burning itself out from all the energy it was trying to use. Scared he'd lose his reward, he instantly used his boots to teleport right in front of it. He whipped out his sword. And sliced its head clean off. Just like that, he turned off his eye skill, and the rewards started popping up. He didn't just gain 3 levels, he also got a piece of gold rank gear and over 10,000 merit points along with a server-wide announcement. Everyone found out he'd won, but for real, they all knew he was the GOAT anyway. Once he hit level 30, the system announced that he could try his luck and get a super cheat. Our boy knew that every cheat he'd gotten so far had been absolutely broken. Around the crystal, everyone was celebrating, knowing that with this W, the zombies were way weaker and even gave out more XP. They knew our dude had just set up the perfect opportunity for everyone to level up. Right then, he appeared in the city. Ew. With the top 10 players. The crowd wanted to mob him with thanks, but he just told the big dude to cause a distraction and ducked into an alley. People were buzzing about how his fame had skyrocketed again. They all said that if he ever needed a favor, he just had to ask. Lindsay thanked them and told everyone to go get some rest. They'd all gone hard today. Then the system congratulated all the players for not just surviving the invasion, but for crushing the counterattack. Because of that, Jin City didn't just secure its safe zone, it actually got bigger. There were 36 different updates about how the city had leveled up. But long story short, the city got way stronger, period. Looking back, our guy saw the new barrier going up. Now that the first problem was solved, it was time to go talk to the general. While everyone was staring at the awesome new barrier, a global announcement dropped congratulating our boy for being the first to kill a gold-ranked boss. The poor saps who couldn't even take down a silver-ranked boss had their minds totally blown. Meanwhile, his fans were like, of course he did. What else would you expect from our legend? Back at the hotel, the big guy was chowing down on a massive chicken leg. While our boy was trying to chill, but he suddenly shot up saying he couldn't sleep until he knew what his super cheat was. The ability he got was space expansion. Basically, it doubled the number of items he could stash in his inventory. He thought it was kind of sus, like why would a simple inventory buff be a super cheat? Then the system explained that it didn't just let him use special space-related items, but it also gave him the power to literally go inside his own storage, like it was a whole other dimension. Right then, he totally got why it was a super cheat. He was thinking about getting another hotel. But now, there was no need. He had his own portable home, so he decided to check out how this new interaction with space items worked. The only space-type item he had was those boots that totally jacked up his speed. He checked it out, and thanks to this hack, he was taking like 90% less damage when he zoomed. This buff was so OP, he knew he needed a bigger playground and stuff, so he decided to check out this new zone he unlocked. The second he hit the button, this blue light flashed, and a portal just popped up. He jumped through and landed in this totally empty room. It was basically a blank void until the system menu appeared. He realized he could totally crash here, so he popped open his inventory, whipped out a sofa card, and started decorating his new crib. But Yo, this one new item was wild. Some kind of liquid juice he got from those ritual zombies. Thing is, it buffs zombies, which also means it's like a total magnet for them. He totally remembered this stuff from his past life. It was the perfect thing if you wanted to, like, make a deal with zombies, because they'd trade anything to get stronger. And of course, there's always some clueless dude. Like, what happens if I chug this? You'd instantly turn into some messed up creature, or a half-zombie, half-human freak, and just game over. But our guy knew the perfect guinea pig for the job. So he warped back to his room, hit up his friend, and was like, yo, take a sip. For real, the stuff looked super toxic, but when he opened it, it looked just like plain old water. Without even thinking, the beast glutton chugged it and started glowing with this insane blue aura. Then the system was all, congrats, you're top rank, and said he was getting a reward. He was like, come on, show me the goods. It looked like some cool lightning skill, but it was magic class only, which was totally useless for him. The gold rank loot he got from the event was the Ring of Elements. It jacked up his spiritual power and made his mana regen way faster. He sat on his bed and told the system to pop open the other reward screens. Like, where'd these even come from? No clue, but hey, they're here. Our dude was so hyped he got a dagger and another ring. The dagger was gold rank and perfect for smashing that like button, which helps Memorial cook up more awesome content for you guys. Don't forget to hit that notification bell. Peace out.